Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for joining us on this Friday night as we get into military UFO encounters. Author Robert Allred is here and ready to go via the phone to come in and talk about some amazing encounters and incursions. And we're going to have a great show with you tonight as well, of course. So let us go right to it, as we say hello tonight to everybody in the chat room. We have Chris Laker in the gold medal position, race fan with a silver, Area 51 taking home a bronze medal tonight. Kitty Cattywhack, how are you? Deanna Ann is here. Deanna Ann will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Brad Ford, Frankie B, Dragonfly, nice to see you all. Hi there, Chris. Teen, nice to see you. Deadfish, Mama Catherine, mwah, I love you, my dear. I hope you have had a wonderful day and have a wonderful weekend coming up. Thomas Rock, Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. And Mel WD40 is currently lubing us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want any of that rigidness. It never, ever feels too good. Continuing on, John Lamb is back. John Lamb will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Erico, how you doing, my man? Thanks for coming on in. High Road Flare. Deborah Rooney, good to see you both. Kurt W75. Cosmic Joe, thank you both for coming on in. Lee the Bee. Beba Bali, how you doing? Good to have you back. As we continue on with our roll call tonight. Brown Dwarf, T-Bone, my man. How you doing? Good to see you. Marty Burback, Polly Rotterman, Paramarv. Thank you all for coming on in and getting ready for tonight's show. Pam Harris, Tim Mothman and his goatee. Good to see you three. As we continue on with roll call. All the way from Stockholm, Sweden, wearing number 1 tonight, starting in goal, Lars Janssen. Nikki in Seattle, thank you for coming on in. Resonate, good to see you. Hi, Christine Lynn. And who's next on our list? Well, it's Phyllis Boucher Perry. Good evening to you. So we continue on with our roll call. Jay Truthseeker, thank you for joining us. Eternity Eternal. Sir Wolf, it's been a while. Good to have you back. As we continue on with our roll call. Hi there, Kimberly Burgess. Thank you for joining us tonight. Deb, thank you for kicking off the super chat. It's a lovely way to support our show on a nightly basis. So thank you very, very much. Stargazer, how you doing? Fapperoony. Don't worry, it's a long series, Fapster. Long series. The Yankees will come back. Yes, they will. They always do. Continuing on with our roll call here. Debbie Nickerson, nice to see you. Nina Williams, thanks for coming on in. Oob to Joe's Maine. I got nothing either, buddy. Pointy sticks. That's all I got. Noble Patrick, thank you for coming on in. And Warded Dragon, good to see you as well. Continuing on with our roll call, Damian Wyatt, thank you for coming on in. And Christine Lynn, And Joanne, good to see you. Richard Minnick, thank you for that awesome super chat. Very much appreciate your love of SOR, my friend. Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and Robert Allred, author extraordinaire, will be with us to talk about UFO incursions with the military. Here we go with roll call. Jessica S. Good to have you here. And who's next on our list here? Super crazy. Joey Glow, welcome to SOR Chat. As we continue on with roll call tonight, as we're running out of time, but we'll get there. We will get there. Deanna Ann, thank you for that lovely super chat. Greatly appreciate your love of SOR. And we got 10 seconds. John Jackson, nice to see you. Excuse me. Throw those horns up, everybody. Let's rock. Of Central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a rock out Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our site as well. You can follow us on X, Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, the Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charity. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charity today. You can find it on our website. For a power show of UFO talk tonight. Author Robert Allred is here talking about his book, A History of Military Encounters with UFOs, Explanations, and Combat Strategies. So we're looking forward to this one tonight. Then in hour number 3, we're going to kick things off with Swamp Dweller. Then Lee Strauss, yes, extra small Lee, and Jackie Harmon will be here for a Friday night cryptid report. Let's get it going right now because I'm excited about this. There's one thing that I love. Well, actually, there's two things. I love military aircraft and I love UFOs. Combine the two, and man, that is in for a great night of radio tonight. Robert Allred was born and raised in Chicago, relocated to Southern California in 1970, and relocated to Northern California in 1974. In 1987, he married his lovely wife, Kim Van Nguyen. They had 2 sons, now in their 30s. After holding and losing many jobs, blue collar and white collar, Robert attended Contra Costa Community College and UC Berkeley, graduating in 2016 with degrees in American Studies and Political Economy. After decades of struggle to break in, Robert sold Mysteries of the Norman Conquest to Pen and Sword Books in the UK in 2022. On the 11th of October 2024, he put out this great book. A History of Military Encounters with UFOs was released, and that's what we're getting into tonight. Robert Allred, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Dave, for inviting me on your program.
1 second here, because we're not getting much audio from you here, my friend. Do you want to just say hello to us again?
Hi, Dave. Can you hear me now?
We got you now, my friend.
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me on your program.
We're so glad to have you here. You know, did you ever think, going way back, that you would actually write a book about UFOs?
Not really. Throughout my life, I'm almost 77. In almost decades, I only read a question program. I had no idea.
Robert, do you have us on speaker?
No.
Okay, because you're just coming through extremely quietly, and I'm trying to figure out why here.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, let's try that. Let's try that.
Okay. So no, I never talked about stuff. All that time. The movies. I had no idea that. Going great man had translated books. That's what I had as I wrote all the concept books. And I just seen the TV video.
Hey, Robert, I hate to do this. Can we give you a call on your house phone? It's much louder. All right, we're going to call Robert on his house phone here. Hey, this is live radio. Sometimes these things happen, and we're going to get this going here momentarily here. You know, this is such an interesting story regarding UFOs.
This is Robert.
Hi, Robert. Now we got you. Now we got you, my friend. All right.
Okay.
So, how did you get involved with all this? Were you always a UFO believer?
I was more of a fence sitter than I realized, and I thought it was mildly interesting, lights in the sky. I didn't realize what sort of close encounters there had been until I had researched this book. And as I got into researching it, I read about 60 books on UFOs, visited an enormous volume of websites, watched some TV programs, and I became more alarmed as I went through it to see that these things are not only going on, they're possibly posing a threat. As the U.S. government set up the alien, what was it called now? ATIP, Threat Identification Program. Anomalous, I forget what it's called exactly, but they identified it as a threat as well. So I began to see in a whole new light, especially after I read about the alien abductions.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you don't have aliens, I mean, what do you have in this lifetime? I mean, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
You
and
know?
They're definitely there.
Oh, yes. Now, had you ever had any encounters or any sightings that led you to this interest, or was it just a keen curiosity?
I was curious, but then in 2004, our sons, we have a rural place also, and we were taking some neighboring girls back to their ranch so they wouldn't walk home in the dark. And, there were mountain lions and bears and things afoot, so we dropped them off. And we went back, and I decided to show the boys the North Star and the Pointer Stars. So I took my 2 million candle power light, and I flashed on the pointers, and I directed my beam to the North Star, and I flashed it 3 times, and then something flashed back. But there were no aircraft. There were no aircraft identification lights. There was nothing. So we all 3 saw it. So my immediate response was to say to myself, oh, it's probably some joker up there in a military plane or something messing with us. But I was so uneasy, I said, let's go inside. And we went inside, and now my wife, who is fearless, she said, oh, let's go out there and see it. So I said, okay. And on the way out the door, she says, bring your gun. So that was our encounter.
Well, that was something that is very interesting. I mean, the fact that here you are just stargazing, and all of a sudden this extraordinary encounter happens with your boys. At least you had witnesses.
I know, and that's what. No, and that reminds me. I have not watched the podcast until I watched your show last week. And after the show, you did after the guest left, you did an editorial about people who observe things in the sky, or experiencers who may be abducted or something, are their own worst critics. So we shouldn't abuse them, and we should take them seriously. I discovered that also through reading this book. When I read Travis Walton's book, he had to go through most of the book countering debunkers. And he said he went through a lot of hardships around town because people treated him as if he were a hoaxer or had mental problems. But obviously, if you have 5 witnesses or 6 witnesses, I forgot the number exactly, who all passed lie detector tests, something happened.
Well, something is happening out there, and that is something that I think that the newfound UFO community that is all about science and all about what the government knows has really pushed aside what the experiencers are going through. And I'm not only saying that as a professional journalist, Robert, but I'm also saying that as an experiencer of my own who has had ET encounters.
I'm not surprised given your location. It seems they prefer remote areas.
Well, my first encounters started about an hour east of Vancouver, British Columbia. And then I moved up to where I am now in the middle of nowhere. And it's funny, the UFOs in my area, people believe in them. People see them all the time shooting across the sky.
Well, no one would talk to me about it or mention it until after I told them about my book. And then suddenly people came forward and explained that they had seen a lot of lights near the rural place. And one woman in town even confessed to us, my wife and I, that she suspected she'd been abducted many years ago in Arizona.
When you first started hearing about alien abductions, did you actually believe that these were true and not just some sort of creepypasta type story?
That's a good question. I was about 16 when the Look magazine article came out about Barney and Betty Hill. And I was in a doctor's office waiting for my mom. And I asked the receptionist if I could take the magazine home with me. And I took it home and I read it. And at first, I was dumbfounded. Why would two people try to hoax everybody? And then as I went through it, it went from being skeptical and a bit suspicious of the couple to wondering, why would these creatures come here and focus on humans' reproductive organs? It sounded like the old 1950s science fiction movie, Mars Needs Women. And I just thought it was kind of ridiculous at the time. So I set it aside from my memory as well and didn't think about it for quite some time. And later on, actually, when I was in Berkeley, for one of my majors, American Studies, I wrote a paper about UFOs as cultural artifacts of America in part of my American Studies courses. And I was somewhat skeptical, not quite accepting a lot of it. But as I went along, I began to realize that there's something there.
The one thing that I like about what you're talking about tonight is that you came in with a critical perception of what this might be. And from that skeptical point of view, because everybody wants to be so skeptic out there, that you actually had a real change of heart towards what is truly going on within this world of ours that we can't explain. Do you believe then that there are secrets out there that we don't know about, that there are stories from the US government that they are hiding information from us that probably, should be told to maybe calm this world down, as it's an ugly place right now?
It is, and it probably always has been, actually. But I don't think people are going to panic and burn down their cities if they realize aliens are real. I think the major reason governments, and particularly air forces, don't want to talk about it, want to deny the whole thing, is they have to admit to us that these creatures can come and go as they please and do whatever they want, and we can't do anything about it right now.
When you started digging into this story of UFOs and alien encounters, what really caused you to gasp and say, there's no way this could be true?
There's no way this could be true was, okay, at first, the fact that these creatures are telepathic, or they have available some technology that allows them to perceive and affect our thoughts, our emotions. And but as I went on and I read about, and even heard on, I watched a documentary by Dr. David Michael Jacobs, and I watched some other TV shows that had excerpts. of interviews with experiencers, and I came to realize that these people aren't lying. It was Dr. John Mack, the head of the psychiatry department at Harvard. His first reaction was, these people must be crazy. And by the time he talked to a half dozen of them, he realized they're not lying. So, yeah, that was a stunning revelation that they're coming here and they're grabbing people and they're doing things and they're manipulating the victims' minds. These people are kidnapped victims. They're subjected to the equivalent of rape and mental rape because they seem to insert images into people's minds of catastrophes. And I think they're waging a psychological war against the human spirit. Like we're hopeless creatures who can't help ourselves, and maybe they can help us, but maybe not. They don't seem to have helped us so far.
Have you ever had a chance to talk one-on-one with experiencers about what they've gone through?
No, everything I've gotten is secondhand or through the media, except the one woman, and I told her what Dr. Jacobs recommended. If you can live without going into it and revealing everything to yourself, you're going to be opening a Pandora's box of nightmares. So just let it be. And she decided to let it go.
Is that something that you would like to maybe go down that rabbit hole a little bit just to see where it kind of leads? Because, I mean, so many experiencers are experiencing such different avenues of the phenomena.
Well, as a matter of fact, Pen and Sword expressed great interest in a follow-up book focusing on UFO incidents and alien abductions. And I went further. And in both books, I took the attitude, journalistic attitude, that they told me to write, John Graham told me he wanted a serious, almost scholarly book, but still accessible to average readers. And I think I pulled it off in both cases. And as I went into it and I read about people like Travis Walton, who had all the witnesses, I read about the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan abduction of Linda Napolitano, and the fact that it probably included many abductees and had independent witnesses step forward. I went back and I looked at the Hill case again, this time from my skepticism was gone. I had an open mind. I realized that there's something very disturbing going on here. And if people like Dr. Jacobs are correct, and these beings are working from a hidden agenda to create a hybrid race, possibly for the objective of taking advantage of humanity, I became outright horrified. And I thought, well, we've got to do something about this. And part of the book is about combat strategies, how we can combat these things, how we can deter them from coming here and doing their mischief. And it was during the investigation of the Roswell crash that I realized that possibly the aliens piloting that craft were not familiar with the fact. We had just begun using powerful radars. New Mexico at the time was a hive of military bases, nuclear sites, missile production, and we had powerful new radars installed. And we just begun radio broadcasting. And my theory I put forward in the book is that this craft possibly intentionally was focused upon by powerful radar beams. And I don't know if those alone, even given the radio transmissions going through the area at the time, would have done anything. But I speculate that there was a fortunate for us, unfortunate for them, lightning strike. They were in a thunderstorm. And that may have been what brought them down.
What's interesting is that for years, they even denied that there were two craft at Roswell. It was only thought there was one. And now all of a sudden, we're hearing that the rumors are true. There was two craft that crashed.
Well, as far as I can tell, I relied on largely upon the book written by retired Lieutenant Colonel Kevin D. Randall and journalist Rob Schmidt. I hope I got his first name right. Don Schmidt. They interviewed scores of witnesses and they went through all the evidence. And in the book, I don't go too far away from what I think can be proven by many, many witnesses, or at least a few. And as I explained, eyewitness testimony is accepted around the world. It's the majority of evidence in criminal cases. Why should we suddenly disbelieve people because they say they saw lights in the sky or dead aliens? I certainly don't. And what added to the credibility for me even more was the fact that military people charged with handling and maybe using nuclear weapons report that these things show up in disabled missiles, for example. And while they're threatened by superior officers with disciplinary action if they talk about it, they're not taken off their duties. They're not dismissed. They're not punished in any way, which tells me the higher ups know these guys are not lying.
Well, you bring up something very interesting there that we have argued for a long time on this show, and that is the fact that why is it that eyewitness testimony can be the best evidence of a court case putting somebody in jail for life, or when it comes to the UFO field, it's considered garbage. It's considered non-credible. And that's not just from the skeptics, that's from scientists themselves.
Yeah. Well, I found that some people who claim to be making scientific investigations of UFO incidents often leave out key facts, and they come up with sometimes foolish explanation that's very dismissive, and then they just want to say, okay, the whole incident is no good because this one little thing doesn't add up, not accounting for the fact that in criminal cases, again, for example, testimony will vary from witness to witness. In fact, if there's identical testimony, then you got to suspect that they colluded and made something up. So definitely, the eyewitness testimony counts for a lot, but in some cases, there's more evidence. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist from the 1950s, said that illusions do not leave impressions on radar screens and cameras.
With 2 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour, Robert Allred is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. When you hear that, people are kind of kiboshing this type of evidence, how many leads do you think we are losing annually to UFO sightings, encounters, landing spots? Because people don't want to talk about it. People are afraid to talk about it, to be made fun of.
At least hundreds. And I also discovered there are credible cases from around the world. I feature them in a couple of chapters in the book, including, from the Southern Hemisphere to Russia, even China.
It is a little bit very interesting about that. I mean, here's the thing, though. I as a proponent of experiencers as I am, we end up in this field to take a lot of heat from a lot of different people saying, well, you have no proof, you have no evidence. Well, you don't in a court case either. You just have your eyes. And yet, when it comes to UFOs, you can have three people in a group, such as yourself, but all three of you see something different. And I think that's the argument.
Yes, I agree. I think sometimes it's evident these creatures can manipulate our perceptions. So sometimes there may be some interference from their end, and some people have had their memories suppressed, and they come out years later, or less, in months, sometimes with hypnosis, sometimes without. But I do believe these creatures are extremely deceptive and manipulative of us, which tells me they're up to something nefarious.
Well, you know what? I agree with you on that part. I also agree that there are some good ones out there. But when we come back from the break here at the bottom of the hour, we're going to talk to author Robert Allred about some amazing stories regarding military incursions with UFOs. You can get his book right now, A History of Military Encounters with UFOs, Explanations, and Combat Strategies, online at any major bookstore. Here we go. We'll be right back. That was a fast half hour, my man.
Yeah, it was.
That was fun.
It is fun.
I cannot wait to get into part 2 here.
Okay. How long of a break do I have?
We got about 4.5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking. I don't think I have to use the plumbing yet. Maybe at the top of the hour. What's the break then? About 8 minutes?
No, it's about 6 minutes.
Thank you.
No problem. No problem. All right.
A long time ago, briefly, I was a country and western DJ on a small station here, and I did some radio local news reporting. But the business is too crazy. It's too uncertain, so I withdrew.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I know that feeling. All too well. All too well.
So I saw, looking at your website, I assumed that you were just outside Toronto, but you're in central British Columbia.
Yes, I am about a 5.5 hour drive northeast of Vancouver.
So you have plenty of wildlife there.
Yes. Let's see. In my area, if you go into the forest, say about 15, 16 miles from here, depending on the direction, there's black bears, grizzly bears, mountain lions, lynx, bobcats, martens, porcupines, wild horses, Sasquatch, Dogman, deer, moose, wolves.
We've got some of those, but we don't have Sasquatch. We don't have grizzlies, and what was the other one? Oh, we don't have wild horses, but we have the rest, I think.
Yeah, I like it. The one thing I love about walking out of my studio at night is you never know what you're going to see. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you an example. Earlier about a month and a half ago, it was middle of the day. I'm, walking out to my carport, open up the door, kind of doing my thing like I normally do. And there's a deer lying right in my carport. And I'm just like, oh, hey, how you doing? And she's just laying there, I said, are you enjoying the shade? Right? Just had a conversation with her.
Yeah. I like to do that too. They seem to appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the deer.
You're breaking up. Am I breaking up here?
No, you're sounding beautiful.
Okay, good. All right.
All right.
I'm glad it worked out. The reason I didn't want to do the StreamYard is I'm totally unfamiliar with it. I'm kind of a computer klutz. So
that's okay.
Go with the phone.
That's okay. Not a problem. We got you covered here, my man.
Thank you. Did you guys correct my name on the website, or can't do that now?
Yep, we've got it done. I think Sweet Robbie G is working on it here. Let me see.
Great. I see. Yeah, I heard him last week. It was an interesting show.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
He was a guest, right?
Rob is, he's also our weekend host here on the show.
Okay.
So I do Monday through Friday, and then he does Saturday and Sunday. And if something happens that I can't make an evening show during the week, he'll cover for me. The guy is just literally the best. I can't say that too loud because, his ego will inflate,
Yeah, I didn't know you were on weekends. I'll have to listen in from time to time. I'm generally busy between 9 and 11 doing work here.
Well, we're here every night for you.
Thank you.
No problem. We got about a minute to go here. Where's home for you?
I live at the edge of a town called Richmond, California. It's near Berkeley.
Oh, cool.
And we're kind of at the boundary of it in two other towns, so we're kind of removed. And then we have a country place near Red Bluff, about 200 miles north. It's extremely remote, but not as remote as you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so remote that people use camouflage as a fashion statement around here.
We're 35 miles from the nearest store and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. All right. We're coming back here in about 15 seconds, maybe a little bit longer.
Standing by.
Thank you to Deboruni ×2, Richard, Deanna, Mel WD40, and T-Bone, my man, for some great super chats there. It's a wonderful way to support what we do. on this show on a nightly basis. Hi, Hillbilly Herb. How you doing? Sweet Robbie G. How you doing, my friend? Looking good tonight. Hope the chin hair is well. Don't forget you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. That's why you can wear our stuff in public and be proud of it. Derek, how you doing? Good to see you. And here we go, everybody. The second half hour, Spaced Out Radio tonight. UFO encounters with the military. That's what we're talking about with Robert Allred. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for tuning us in. And we want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The book is called A History of Military Encounters with UFOs, Explanations and Combat Strategies. The author, Robert Allred, is here tonight on the show to talk about these encounters. And I cannot wait to do this. Robert, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks again, Dave.
This book, it really encapsulates two things that I love in my life: jet fighters and UFOs. How did you start digging into this?
Well, I saw the videos, and I looked into the news stories that are available generally online. And it was impossible to disbelieve the flyers and my eyes at the same time, no matter what people, for example, at the Pentagon would try to tell us isn't there. And it convinced me that we have almost irrefutable proof, if not a crashed object on display, which I'm sure would be confiscated and hidden away. We have something everyone can look at.
When you say that we have something that everybody can look at, there's not a lot of official UFO videos out there. Yes, we have Gimbal, we got Go Fast, we have the Tic Tac, and a few others. But what really convinced you that this was something that there had to be more?
Well, when I read the testimony of the pilots and the chief radar operator on the USS Princeton, and then I put that together with, for example, the Border Patrol has a film of a video of a UFO along our southern border. There's one from Puerto Rico where the UFO evidently splits in two, goes underwater, comes back out again. There's the splash video where the UFO drops into the ocean, but without a splash, evidently taken from a submarine periscope, I imagine. You put all those together, and again, the fact that people like Commander Fravor were not relieved of duties, and it tells me that the people at higher levels of command know what's going on, particularly when they sent a team out to the USS Princeton and confiscated all their radar tapes.
Have you ever had a chance to talk with Kevin Day?
I have not. Oh, Kevin Day, that's his name. No, I have not. Just about everything I gathered in this book came secondhand through news sources. So I have not. I did not have the time or financial budget to interview people.
Well, if you ever want to meet him, you let us know. We'll hook that up for you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I certainly appreciate that.
He's a great guy. Absolute gem of a guy. And
I imagine from what I saw of him on television.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely, for sure. So as you started looking into this and gathering stories, did you notice any patterns in between the encounters?
Patterns on the part of the government?
The government or the UFOs, whatever it may be.
that's the thing about the UFOs. They're puzzling for several reasons, I think. One of which is they're aliens. They don't think the way we do. On the other hand, I'm speculating that if they became the dominant species on their planet, they must have some behavioral similarities to us, which tells me they might be the ace predators on their planet. And I came to suspect that they're here to exploit one or more of our resources that I cannot identify yet. And for example, the Tic Tac that was hovering over the ocean when Commander Fravor went down to look at it, it was stirring up the water down below as if it were rummaging through someone's dresser drawer looking for something. They seem to favor certain areas to enter the ocean and do whatever business they're up to. And I have no idea what they're actually trying to find or take away, possibly.
One thing that I'm curious about as you went through this study, you looked at a lot of history regarding these subjects. You looked at the 2004 Nimitz incident. The years that go by, where did you find these stories, whether it's Foo Fighters or whether it's UFO encounters?
Sometimes I blundered onto something when I was looking for something else. I found a Air Force document in the early 50s between two generals that acknowledged the reports of Foo Fighters in World War II. So amongst themselves, it was a then secret document. They were acknowledging the existence of these reports while publicly they were just ignoring the whole thing.
What do you think the denial is?
What do I think it is? Well, again, they don't know how to deal with it, so it just can't be there as far as we're concerned. But I don't buy this these stories that, well, the Royal Air Force and Ministry of Defense in England are good at saying, well, that evidence has since been destroyed. Since when do we gather intelligence of any sort, whether about allies or adversaries, and then destroy the intelligence? I'm sure it's locked away somewhere, and we have teams of people trying to puzzle it out, but I don't think they're capable of doing it given their mindset. I think we need more people to become aware. We need broader investigations by not just establishment type scientists, but ufologists who've been working as outsiders and yet have uncovered more than the insiders.
My big thing about the whole government cover-up is we have no clue what the truth is. They keep, it's kind of like this trust me bro type situation. And ufology is very good at shooting itself in the foot. When I first started this show 10 years ago, almost 10 years next month, the one thing that I learned about it was that everybody who I interviewed said the same thing. If we could only get one insider, just one, to open up their mouth and say this is true, then we have it made. The story's going to pop. Well, you look and you fast forward to where we are today, and whether it's David Grush, whether it's Lou Elizondo, Chris Mellon, or James Lukatsky, Jay Stratton, Colm Kelleher, Eric Davis, or whomever it is who claims to have worked on, in programs regarding this, and everybody is absolutely lambasting them for coming out in public and claiming that their stories aren't true without real, true evidence. How do you base what we're trying to do and what we're trying to get out there if we don't even believe what's being handed to us on a silver platter?
Well, yeah, I do believe what Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, the others are saying. They corroborate one another. Lou Elizondo said David Grush is a honorable, dependable person. I don't understand how Lou Elizondo went from being such a government hero to becoming an unperson. He never existed. He never worked in the program. Well, that's sort of silliness they're trying to sell us now. I just read an article after I wrote this book by Chris Mellon explaining that early on in the UFO encounters in the early 50s and later, these craft were actually sending identification friend or foe signals and radio signals back at us. So I'm perplexed that all of these scientists and researchers are listening to the stars for signals to come in from out there when these craft nearby the Earth have been sending us signals all along. So yeah, I have no skepticism regarding them at all. And as time went on and I looked at more and more, I've gotten to the point where I think I said something to the effect in the book that why should I believe some bureaucrat who has never been in an airplane, who has never been to a missile base, who suddenly comes up with these perfect excuses why these events could not have happened.
What's your thoughts then on NASA? Do you think I personally believe, and I've gone public on this, saying that I believe they are playing us as fools.
I agree. There are too many interrupted video transmissions from the space station, and I assume others that tell me if there's nothing to hide, why are you shutting off the video?
I think it was absolutely insultive of Bill Nelson, the executive director of NASA, to come out and say how interested he was in a lot of these fighter pilots coming out talking about their encounters, but never once did he mention what NASA had, what kind of evidence NASA had, what kind of evidence that they have covered up over the years, from their own astronauts to videos of their own rockets having some sort of encounter with UFOs, never mind their test pilots. I mean, there's a famous example of an X-15 test pilot flying at 315,000 feet above the earth. And he's reporting about how there's a UFO flying right beside his cockpit, keeping up at his speed, where I think he was cruising at about Mach 6, Mach 7. And then it took off and went up into the stars like nothing happened.
Yeah, I fully accept that. Was he a former senator, Nelson? I believe he was.
I believe he was, and he's a former astronaut.
Oh, okay. That was don't look here, look over there, distraction. So yeah, we can't rely on that kind of thing. We have to rely on the eyewitnesses and the brave people who have stepped forward.
I would totally believe that. If you were head of NASA, knowing what you know now, would you hold the secret?
No. During the research, I encountered in a book by Paul Stonehill, who focuses on the Russian and Soviet Union aspects of the phenomena. He said that in, I believe it was 1957, the various intelligence agencies held a meeting in Switzerland, and they agreed to keep it a secret and to resort to character assassination, ridicule, all the usual tricks. It sounds plausible to me, given the fact that most governments, France being an exception, and a couple of the South American countries, it's either Peru or Colombia, I believe it's Peru, are open to sharing what they know with everyone.
In your opinion, then, why are North Americans not sharing the information?
Well, one thing is, I think we don't want to give away too much. We don't want our geopolitical opponents getting the advantage technologically, possibly having a super weapon. That's always a fear, and not unfounded either. I think people have been more skeptical of that idea a few years ago before Russia invaded Ukraine, and we see that things haven't changed that much. Europeans used to kind of have this attitude toward other people that, well, they're beyond all that, but they're not. We're probably reluctant to share secrets with not just our opponents, but even our allies. And also, again, they're embarrassed that they can't do much about it right now.
Do you think then that there is some sort of Pandora's box holding all of these secrets, whether it's at the Pentagon, whether it's, you know, tucked somewhere deep within the hallowed grounds of Washington, D.C.?
I do. I think it's a closely, jealously guarded secret, according to, I believe it was David Clark. I think he wrote the book Above Top Secret, who said that the UFO information is considered more important than that related to nuclear weapons.
How does that make you feel?
Well, I have mixed feelings about that. On the one hand, we've got to know more, but again, I have to agree with them that we can't let out too much. I wouldn't want Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin to have superior military technology to ours.
See, this is where I get confused because Russia has had their own Roswell incident. It's assumed that China has as well. And it kind of makes me wonder all over again, if it is much like space where we are, even though there's a war of words going down here on the planet, when it gets up into space, there seems to be a lot more teamwork going on. And I'm wondering if that's how it is for the UFO world as well.
That is likely, but like I said, up to a point. I think they're going to hold back. You don't want to show all your cards.
When you say that, are you saying it more in the fact that you believe that there is, a real defense issue here regarding technology in the military industrial complex?
I do. Philip Corso says they slowly released a little bit of alien technology into our industrial base clandestinely, and it's not beyond reason for me to accept that. Although I think we're pretty clever, we're learning a lot of things, and in throughout the book, I also mentioned there are hundreds of annotations in the book. How many times, for example, mental telepathy, it's too out for a lot of people to accept. But I note in there how we're learning to read, interpret, and even make use of brainwaves. For example, people who have missing limbs and have prosthetics, that we can manipulate these very subtle electromagnetic energies the same way the aliens do. We're learning. We're just we're at the kindergarten level, and they're at an advanced PhD stage, but we're getting there.
What do you think the biggest advancement that they're holding back on us is? Is it time travel? Is it free energy? What do you think it is?
I don't know. Honestly, free energy is a really good candidate. I'm still undecided about time travel. I know there are time distortions, but I don't know if they can be harnessed and controlled to the degree where we can come and go as we please and within the time-space continuum and actually remain in existence as we are now. In other words, we might slip into another dimensional state and not be able to get back.
Do you think then that the U.S. government does in fact have a number of craft that they have got that have maybe crashed on this planet? Or do you think that they are, looking into pieces of the puzzle just like we are?
I think at the very least they have wreckage. They might have intact craft. I can't remember. Bob Lazar. He said so. At first I thought he was a publicity hound, but as I look into his story more and more, it's more and more believable to me all the time that we do have intact craft. I don't know how we could have captured them. Some people think they were left as gifts on the ground. I tend to think maybe it was like they had a mechanical issue and it's like an abandoned car and we scooped it up. I think, by the way, the Cash Landrum case in Texas, where the women saw the diamond-shaped craft being pursued by military helicopters, I posit that the alien craft was in trouble, and the Army, our military, likely captured it at some point after, I can't remember the lady's first name, Cash developed injuries, radiation injuries from the object being too close to her.
We got 4 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Author Robert Allred is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Robert, one of the things that I've noticed in our near long hour conversation so far is you really tend to look at this as a very, very almost dangerous program that we could be hiding here. You don't seem to believe that there's much good that could come of this. Why do you pose that attitude?
The abductees' descriptions of the inside of the alien ships and the way the aliens behave, it's a very Spartan military setup. They seem to have none of the amenities or enjoyments of life. There's no artwork on the walls. There's no music playing. They just seem to devote themselves to work. It seems as if the entire phenomenon is some sort of possibly military reconnaissance mission to our planet. And I suspect it began in earnest around the 1890s. And when the book was first being written, it was much longer. And I went back and I looked at some ancient incidents. And there might have been occasional UFO incidents going back to ancient times, but I don't think they were really keeping tabs on us that closely until we started to investigate electromagnetic energy and nuclear technology, beginning around the year 1880, 1890.
Yeah, that's pretty much, the Kmart blue light special that seemed to pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah. I forgot the rest of your question there.
Well, just in regards to the negativity of it all, because a lot of people do believe that a lot of their contact has been more of the positive atmosphere.
I know, and I think sometimes they're doing a sales job on people. And oftentimes it seems they will even level with people, knowing that they're going to erase their memories. I suspect that their purpose for being here is less helpful than harmful, yes.
You mentioned that it might be some sort of military action on the way they're getting here, but aren't we the same as explorers? We did it hundreds of years ago.
Yes, and that tells me that they're more like we are than a lot of people suspect. I like to say they're not the Salvation Army. They're not here to help us. They're here to help themselves.
What do you think they're helping themselves to?
That's a good question. They are possibly exploiting one or more of our physical resources, or maybe with their genetic experiments, they're exploiting our DNA.
For the sake of procreation on their end?
I think so. It seems that there aren't that many of them, and I forget the astronomer's name. He says that evidently an Australian astronomy team and a Chinese one each independently discovered radio signals coming from Proxima Centauri. And I was thinking that'd be a perfect base for operations against Earth.
On that note, we're going to get you to hold on right there. Hard to believe we're already through 1 hour tonight with author Robert Allred. He is the author of A History of Military Encounters with UFOs, Explanations and Combat Strategies. What a book it is. It can be found on Amazon. It can be found on Barnes & Noble and at any major bookstore. It's a good one. If you're into the military and into UFOs, it combines the two with some real true encounters from Foo Fighters to UAP going right through the last century. This is Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We'll be right back, everybody. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Robert, we have 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Or, pardon me, 6 minutes. Sorry, I apologize. 6 minutes.
Okay, I'll be right back.
No problem. One sec here. We're just going to go back in the studio here. All right, everybody. We are back. We got Robert with us. We got about 90 seconds before we go back on to air. Knocker, how are you? PRM, nice to have you here. So we say hello to the people coming in. Kevin, Yennefer, how you doing? Yes, I'm still upset about the Dairy Queen prices. Totally upset about the Dairy Queen prices. $6.28 for a frickin' ice cream cone. It's ridiculous. Necessary Dialogue, how you doing? Scanman, nice to see you, my friend. And who else do we have here? Scrolling on up. And Mr. Cowley, nice to see you, my friend. Xochitl Paez Richards, what's happening? All right. And thank you tonight to Deb times 2, Richard, Deanna, Mel WD40, and T-Bone for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, people. We do not have ugly swag. No ugly swag. Because we don't want you wearing anything ugly. It's that simple. You can wear our stuff out in public and be proud of it. Here we go, everybody. Here comes hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us in as we're talking UFOs and military encounters. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do we got? Pointy Sticks. Pointy Sticks is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Tonight we have author Robert Allred. He has a brand new book out, just came out about a week and a half ago, called A History of Military Encounters with UFOs, Explanations and Combat Strategies. It can be found on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any major bookstore. Robert, thank you so much for being here. This has been such a wonderful night so far.
I'm having a great time, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like you to tell a couple of stories from your books, stories that really kind of resonated with you. Which ones stick out?
Okay. You mentioned military hardware. There are color photographs of various aircraft that have intercepted these things or been involved with them. And there are 8 professional-grade maps in the book. One of the things that fascinated me, I first heard about when I was a kid in Chicago, was in November 1953, an Air Force F-89 interceptor went after a UFO over Lake Superior. And this is given, the information is given directly in detail from the Air Force that the aircraft merged on the radar scope with the UFO, and the UFO kept going, and the Air Force plane disappeared. They never found any wreckage. There were no more messages from the crew. So this aircraft just vanished. There have been rumors and reports of these things happening, especially to the Russians, who are very aggressive in intercepting UFOs. And the Air Force at first put out a couple of stories. It was a Canadian airliner. Canada said, no such plane in the area. They said, well, it was a Canadian Air Force transport plane. Again, nope, no Canadian Air Force planes in the area. Then they just kind of, as usual, dropped the whole thing. Recently, again, I was looking for something else, and I stumbled on the fact that there is a crash report, which I have yet to try to obtain, that another interceptor from the same base crashed on the same day in Wisconsin, which is just a stone's throw from Lake Superior. So I'm wondering if these things could have been some way connected. When I read about that thing, the incident where the two Air Force men disappeared like that, it gave me chills.
When you hear of these military encounters and these pilots who are trained observers having these interactions with these whatever they are, when you read about the encounters, what is your thoughts on what these pilots are going through or what they're seeing?
I have to come down on the side of the pilot witnesses every time. It's possible to be fooled once in a while by something, but I don't think they're being fooled when they get into a prolonged non-combat dogfight, twisting and turning and pursuing these things, and the things outrun them and then appear behind them, and then they turn into it, and then the Air Force says, "Oh, that was a weather balloon." I don't know if weather balloons would behave that way. And they're really insulting the capacity of not only the pilots, but their own training programs. They would have people like that up in the air with our expensive aircraft.
Do you think these UFOs are just kind of toying with us?
Sometimes I do think, for example, with the Washington, D.C. incidents in 1952, that these are dominance displays and intimidation techniques that they're trying to tell us, see what we can do. Resistance is futile. What's not well known about those two incidents is there was another one the following week when General Samford, John Samford, was on film explaining that there have been, what did he say, incredible things seen by credible witnesses. And there was another incident or two in August, and there were still more in May and June of that year near Washington, D.C., and one of them included 50 UFOs. So I think they were trying to send a message to the most powerful nation on our planet. Again, we dominate the skies. Don't try anything.
A lot of people tend to believe that it's these UFOs that are owning the sky right now, and we can't do anything about it. You know, we're having troubles bringing them in on radar. We're having troubles interacting with them. They seem to be able to have close encounters without causing an accident or anything like that. It's almost like they're toying with us, don't you think?
I agree. And I think, the message is to our military people that they're totally outclassed, which they are. However, since the 1970s, 80s at least, we've been developing beam weapons that can probably defeat these things at the speed of light. So I think they have to be a little bit cautious with us at times, especially as now we're arming Navy ships with these powerful lasers. I think the incident off the California coast where a UFO zapped one of our test warheads, it was using soft X-rays. And we have just learned how to generate the same thing. So we're catching up fast to the point where I don't think we can take them on directly, but at some point we'll be able to say, okay, back off, quit kidnapping our people. Whatever you're here for, let's talk about it. If you want to make a deal, okay. Otherwise, don't come here and steal from us or whatever you're doing.
Do you think they are stealing from us?
I do. There's some logical reason they're here. I don't think it's idle scientific curiosity, or else they wouldn't be shadowing military bases around the world, even in places like Uruguay, and they certainly don't have nuclear weapons. And in the book, I report on an Uruguayan incident and other incidents ranging from Antarctica to north of Moscow, Finland. They're very active all the time, and that's just a few that we know about. Oh, by the way, I've got to really extend my appreciation and thanks to all the army of researchers who have, over the years, gathered all this information that I was able to get from about 60 books and dozens, at least, websites, or else I couldn't have written a book.
As you kind of delve through these encounters with military, that's just one facet of the entire situation. And it's right now the most popular facet about what's going on. Why do you think then that the government of the United States and many others are trying to keep this as a military issue rather than an everyday issue for the 8 billion people on this planet?
So they can kind of keep a lid on things as much as possible. Again, it's, well, we can't do anything about it. We really can't defend you, but we still want your tax dollars.
Do you think it's about billions of potential dollars in technology?
Both, yeah. The money, the technology, and also there's some ego involved there. They don't want to admit that they can't figure out what's going on either. That's why they need to bring in establishment researchers and scientists. I applaud people like Avi Loeb, physicist at I believe he's at Harvard, who's come over to our side more or less.
How do you think Earth would advance if all of a sudden the military started actually giving us the technology they've allegedly found? I mean, it's always been circumspect that this is how fiber optics came out to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fiber optics, perhaps lasers, perhaps a lot of the composite materials that aircraft and cars are made from now. Probably very low cost, high energy production processes that can be made available to everyone on the planet.
What would you like to see?
I'd like to see that. Oh, well, if the aliens want to make a deal with us, I'd say the first thing they can give us is a cure for childhood cancer.
Yeah, I would be into that one. Trying to figure out, a lot of the health problems that I don't think we could have, but I think a lot of that too could be cured by stop processing food.
Yeah, I have to agree with RFK Jr. He's one of my heroes in that regard. But I'm not going to get political. At our house, we have a rule, especially when guests come over for dinner: no sports, no religion, no politics.
No sports?
Nope.
Oh my goodness.
It gets pretty heated.
Oh my goodness. I don't think I'll ever be invited over for dinner. That's for sure.
I'm sorry. That's a firm rule by my wife, who is greatest thing ever happened to me.
Well, I also have one more rule to add to that, and that would be no music by Joni Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm actually into music. I have tunes here from 1940 until now. And I had an uncle who was in radio for 45 years, and he said one of the secrets of staying young is don't get stuck in an era. So I can see your Joni Mitchell and a few others too. That yeah, no such music exists.
Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it. Oh my goodness, that big.
Another thing. I'm sorry.
That Big Yellow Taxi song drives me nuts. Absolutely drives me nuts.
Thank goodness I don't remember that.
I worked with I literally worked with a DJ when I worked in terrestrial radio that played that song at minimum 3 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of it, I was absolutely, every time I heard that song, I would run out of our studio so I didn't have to listen to it.
Well, our least favorite around here, I don't know if you have it there, is the Cars for Kids jingle.
Yeah, one's got to go away too.
If you don't have it there, you're lucky.
That one, no, I know exactly which one you're talking about. That one's got to go away too.
When it comes on, we hit the mute. If I don't hit it fast enough, people are holding their ears around here. Yeah. So another person I wanted to thank especially was Leslie Kane. Now, she spells it Keen, but she says it Kane. And her book about pilots and generals spotting UFOs. And I was able to, that's another thing that pushed me toward being a believer, but what really did it was when the videos came out. I mean, I was more of a believer, but in some ways I was more of a skeptic than I realized. And when I read about, for example, the Peruvian Air Force pilot, and a picture of his type of aircraft is in the book. When he shot into the UFO above his Air Force base, there were 1,200 people outside doing calisthenics, and they all saw this thing. He said they all made reports. Now, when I was at Berkeley, I had to take 2 years of Spanish, but my Spanish isn't good enough to read the reports, so I just relied on pretty much on her and some press reports. And then another thing that was fascinating was when the Iranian jets attempted to shoot a UFO down over Tehran in 1976. So yeah, those were some specific, interesting ones, in addition to the disappearing jet in 1953, because it had some documentation. A lot of the ones, for example, over the Soviet Union and Russia, often don't have corroboration. Although Madame Mig, I'm trying to think of what her name was, Popov. She was a test pilot and later an cosmonaut. She said that she personally witnessed an enormous UFO and attempted to intercept it, but it did the usual trick they like to do of going straight up and away.
What's the closest encounter you've had? Was it just that encounter with your sons, or have you had anything that's been closer?
Well, after I wrote the book, our country place is very remote, and one of the previous owners had put in a dirt airstrip. I was at the end of the airstrip looking at some firewood when I suddenly heard this low throbbing sound that would alter in pitch. And I thought, okay, I was on the tractor. It's the vibrations from the tractor. So I turned it off and I still felt it. Okay. So I thought, all right, I've been sitting on the tractor too long. So I got up and then I started feeling it coming through the ground and in the air all around. So having just written this book, I thought I'd scan the horizon. I forgot that I had a visor on. I didn't look overhead. Well, I have learned from the incidents of the Peruvian pilot and some other people shooting at these things. I think they're afraid that if a bullet... Okay, let me back up. I think that these things have screens, shields, force fields to protect them when they're going through space. And I believe when they're in Earth's atmosphere or on the ground, they shut off the shields and they become afraid of kinetic weapons, bullets. So I instantly became very paranoid, and I just projected the thought. I grabbed my pistol. I keep it because there's a lot of wildlife out there. I don't intend to shoot him. I don't hunt. I would do it as a last resort. And I felt this was a last resort, too. So I projected the thought, whether you're from here or somewhere else, I'm shooting. And I took it out, and the throbbing instantly stopped. So I suspect something was there and went straight up. I think they detected what I was not pleased with their presence. So I thought, okay, maybe I've been getting into this stuff too much. Maybe I've been reading too much and being impressionable and all that. So I had no missing time. I put stuff away, parked the tractor, locked up the barn, went back in the house, shaved, shower, had dinner, told my wife about it. I know she was a bit skeptical the way she looked at me. So we're lying in bed reading that night. And I remember it was 8:03 p.m. This was on October 29th, 2022. And suddenly this sound came from, we're in a narrow valley. It's about a half mile wide. The airstrip is along the shoulder of a ridge. It sounded like something bigger than a railroad car cutting through the air with no engine sound. It's not a helicopter. Aircraft seldom go near there, and especially not low because it's treacherous terrain. This guy who put in the airstrip, it was like one of these CIA Laotian airstrips. It had a 15-degree turn in the middle. You can only land and take off in one direction. I don't fly, so I put up a couple of buildings. When I first moved there, I was afraid of drug growers using my airstrip, so I blocked it. Anyway, while we were in bed reading, suddenly we heard this roaring sound, something cutting through the air really loud. It came like down the ridge, across the airstrip, right over the house, maybe almost low enough to hit the chimney. And it was gone in 4.5 seconds. So I figured it was going about 450 miles per hour. Well, she admitted to me that she had been skeptical, that maybe I'd been too impressionable about all this stuff all the time. And she looked at me and she said the same thing Luis Elizondo said when he was reading the reports. This is real. And she's a believer now. We didn't see anything, but we heard it. And like I said, it wasn't in a plane, it wasn't a helicopter, it sure wasn't a weather balloon. I told her, now I know why down here, the proper legal term is American Indians. I know a lot of people prefer Native Americans. I know in Canada it's First People or First Nations. I told them, I know now why they believe in the Thunderbird. It could have been that, but I don't think so. So yeah, I had that creepy experience, and she did too. So again, I'm glad I had a witness. Now earlier, 3 months before to the day, August 29th, the same year, while we were out there, all the lights on the ranch would dim, brighten, flicker, quit, come back on. It started at 1:30 in the morning. Well, I was exhausted from working outside, so I just kept my gun by the bed on the bedstand, and I went to sleep. She couldn't sleep. It kept her up all night. And then about 9 o'clock in the morning, it quit. And I woke up shortly after that. We came back to town, so I thought, okay, electrical problems, maybe the power company at the ranch. But when we came back to town, the same thing had happened in the neighborhood where we are. And I think that's too much of a coincidence. So I had told her at that time, if these things are trying to send me a message, they better use email because I'm not going for it. So yeah, we had these experiences. And I hesitated to let people know because I think, well, you're imagining things, all that kind of. Oh yeah, the ones in town, a lot of people went online and were complaining about it. So we didn't witness that, but we know it happened. So yeah, what you need to have before you can tell people about it with confidence is you really do need to have witnesses to back you up. And
2
that
minutes.
reminds me of what you had said in your editorial, that people, the greatest questioning are by the witnesses themselves.
We have 2 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Author Robert Allred is here tonight on Spaced Out Radio. When we look at the evidence that is all composed, you know, there are so many different factions to this story. If you were to write another book, which angle would you go by? What would be the comfort angle that you think the story really needs to be told in more depth?
Well, as a matter of fact, it's already pretty much complete, and I'll be updating it if Pen and Sword decides to put it out. And not that it needs much updating. The book focuses on UFO incidents and alien abductions, and the main focus, as far as people are concerned, is on police officers, pilots, air traffic controllers, and researchers with PhDs who, most of them, a couple of them, one like John Mack as an MD, on what they themselves experienced or the people they worked with. And having researched that, it really cemented my belief that people are being kidnapped. Samples of their eggs and sperm are being taken. These creatures are manipulating offspring for, again, probably to me, nefarious purposes.
On that note, we got about 20 seconds left. Robert, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Robert is talking about his book tonight, A History of Military Encounters with UFOs, Explanations, and Combat Strategies. And you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any major bookstore. If you love the military, you love UFO encounters, this is a good one to have. This is Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We'll be back with the second half right after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio
with your host, Dave Scott. All right, we are clear, Robert.
So yeah, I really appreciated your editorial about experiencers questioning what they experienced, because I did it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I always love when I remember one time I was telling a story on a show that I was being interviewed on. And I was telling a story about an alien encounter I had in the forest with a young lady at the time named Samantha Mowat. And one of the things, there was one guy in a chat room there, and he was like, that didn't happen. That's not real. You're making this up. You're lying. All the typical bullshit, pardon my language,
I got you.
answers that a skeptic would say. So finally, I got so upset about this. I fired back at him and I said, I mentioned his name. I can't remember his name. I said, were you there?
Yeah, right.
I said, were you there? I mean, which tree were you hiding behind? I said, do you know where Mission, British Columbia is? I said, do you know where the farm was? Do you know which forest it was in? Which tree were you hiding behind? Which stump? Which bush? If you were there, tell us what the truth is.
Yeah.
Right?
I fully agree.
Don't sit here and give me a hard time when my job is to tell you a story about something I've experienced.
Yeah.
Right. Like I said to my listeners a couple weeks ago, the one thing that I want them to all understand, whether they are believers, skeptics, you don't have to believe my guest at all. That's really up to you. But at least give them the courtesy and the benefit of the doubt, because for 2 hours a night, they are coming on here to share their stories, their encounters, their research, their writings with you. And they're doing it for free. And they're doing it to get their name out there and what they've learned about this, and everybody's opinion is valid. Who are you to shoot them down? And I would say about 99.5% of my audience gets it. They're brilliant.
Yeah.
They understand.
Yeah.
But there's always that 0.5%, and it's usually somebody who's never been in my chat room before or never, participated in the live show, and they come in new and they come in guns blazing that they're going to get the proof, and they're going to expose all the morons out there who believe in this crap and all of this stuff. And it's like, get a life.
Yeah.
Get a life, and I would say that it's, there are people out there in our chat room right now listening to this who are trying to put 2 + 2 together to equal 4. And no matter which way they do the math, it never equals 4 because of what they've seen, encountered, and felt.
Well, again, like I said, they can manipulate our perceptions.
Well, they can manipulate a lot, that's for sure. Sorry, I'm just opening my window here. It's so bloody hot in here.
Wow.
Oops. There we go. Now we got her. Get some bacon grease on the old window sill here.
Well, I heard all that commotion. I was afraid you'd been abducted.
Well, wouldn't be the first time. The studio is haunted. We actually, a couple nights ago, something whistled right in front of my computer, in between my UFO reporter, Tim, who's sitting on the other side of my screen, and myself. Like something
within the room.
Within the room, like 3 feet from me.
Wow.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Yeah. My grandma had she heard heard someone choking at a little get together, and other people heard it too. And when one of the couples went home, their baby had choked to death.
Oh my.
Yeah.
That's
So,
horrible.
Yeah, I buy it. I believe you.
Hold on right there. We're going to come back in 20 seconds. Thank you to Necessary Dialogue, T-Bone, Mel WD-40, Deanna, Richard, Deb ×2 for the great super chats. Very much appreciate the love and the support. Mistral, how you doing? Welcome to SOR Chat. And here we go, everybody, in like 7, 8, maybe 9 seconds, 8 seconds, 7 seconds. You know, that clock thing just winds on down. We're going to get going here right now. Second half of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. We're talking UFO encounters with military aircraft, ships, soldiers. Interesting night tonight with author Robert Allred. We'll get to him momentarily, but first, my name is Dave Scott. Thank you for tuning us in. And each and every night we bring you the strange encounters of the phenomenon. Oh yeah, it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/spaced out radio. The only thing I want in return is hit that subscribe button, and you can hit follow on any major podcast network because we're like all over the place. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here's author Robert Allred. Final half hour, we have him with us tonight. We're talking about his book, A History of Military Encounters with UFOs, Explanations and Combat Strategies. Can be found at any major bookstore, online on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Robert, thank you for being here tonight.
I'm happy to be here.
In your title, you say explanations and combat strategies. I'm very curious what you mean by that.
Well, as I was saying before, we have the beam weapons we've developed now, so it's possible we may be able to deter these things. I think still a weakness in our whole chain of industrial and military might is power supplies. So, for example, these portable laser cannon on military vehicles to shoot down drones could be neutralized by these occupants of UFOs by attacking the power source on the vehicle. Because evidently they can do that. They did that to, it's a little known incident that was reported in the mainstream press in 2010. Scores of our ICBMs were shut down. I believe it was at Minot Air Force Base. And we can't figure out how they did it. Now, at first, they were just explained away. And then some military witnesses contacted Robert Hastings, who has written extensively on military interactions with UFOs and UFOs stalking our nuclear sites. They came forward and said there was a large UFO hovering above the missile field when all the missiles went offline. So these things can attack the source of the power supply. And that's another weakness of ours. Now, even power like North Korea could explode 3 well-placed nukes 100 miles above the United States and knock out our power grid for who knows how long, because it takes months to rebuild our transformers. So we'd be in serious shape if the aliens decide to do the same thing. So yeah, we got to find ways to overcome all that. I think it's as I mentioned, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, I grew up in Chicago. We were far from well-to-do, and we moved around a lot because one of my father's hobbies was gambling. And when you're a new kid in the school, you're a bully magnet. And I found out right away the way to put a stop to it is to fight back. and we can't fight back unless we develop the technology to do so. And getting back to what we were saying earlier about that, that's where some cooperation with our geopolitical partners and adversaries would come in handy, so we can maintain the sovereignty of our own planet against any incursions by any aliens coming from anywhere.
Let's get to some audience questions here. Let's start off with Polly, who is asking, where do you draw the line between national security and what you want to disclose?
Well, I don't know if there's a line. There's kind of a gray zone there. I think before you reveal too much, you should probably consult. I could see, for example, congressional committees who are investigating things now, going over some of the things they've already been told and deciding what to let us know. In my own case, after the October 29th incident, I didn't realize until 6 weeks later, I remember it was December 11th, that I was still in a state of shock. That this is real. And I shook it off. I said, look, you've got to shake it off and just move ahead and just put this thing behind you. But so I can see it's going to be pretty disturbing to a lot of people, but we'll get over it.
All right, let's move on and go to Polly again, who is asking, what is your opinion then on Lou Elizondo?
I buy everything he's telling us. He's a down-to-earth, rock-ribbed patriot and dedicated, honest man. By the way, my wife is also a combat veteran, so I respect that. I was never in the military myself, but I do respect that.
I'm a little curious about his book, where he was very complimentary to many people that surrounded him. And those same people, whether it's Jay Stratton, James Lukatsky, Colm Kelleher, Eric Davis, and others, really threw him under the bus after the book came out. And I find that quite an oddity. What's your thoughts?
Maybe he was too forthcoming and they're covering themselves. I didn't read the book. I'm vaguely aware of who some of them are, honestly. In some ways, I'm new to this whole field.
Right.
I didn't start really researching this until around 2021, 22. And by the way, after the book was finished, there was a disaster in transmitting it from one spot to another between here and England and back, and I had to rewrite the book. So that's why it took so long to come out. My last work on it was just this past June. There were numerous delays, like, for example, supply chain issues when the Houthis cut off the Red Sea and the drought cut off the Panama Canal. There were problems with delivering paper and so on. So, it's... I forgot what I was saying to begin with. I think they were just covering for themselves to keep themselves from getting into too much trouble. Maybe they are violating non-disclosure agreements. I have no idea, really.
All right, let's go to another one here. Let's go over to Luna here, who is asking, what do you mean by nefarious purposes when you were explaining the aliens?
Well, they come here. They don't contact us, to my knowledge. They don't offer to negotiate with us, to talk to us. There are hints. They seem to have planted the idea in people's minds that they're helping us, but I don't see any direct help. Maybe indirect help from us recovering some of their crashed vehicles. So they're up to something. I mean, as we were saying before, they seem to have similar psychology to us in some ways. I don't think they're here for a vacation. I don't think they're just researching us as interesting creatures, because they're showing way too much interest in all of our military, industrial, and scientific sites. It looks to me like a thorough reconnaissance of the place in case they decide they might have to get into a fight with us. But in the meantime, I think whatever they're whatever resource they're exploiting. Why fight if you can just go ahead and take candy from a baby?
Couple more questions from Polly here. Do you think religion is a factor for the government in order to keep their lies on this subject going?
Yes. In fact, I have found that in talking with people about the subject, that people with a very fundamentalist view of their religion, and not just talking about Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, but even Hinduism, Buddhists, others, that they instinctively react against it generally. Some people are very accepting, including the Vatican now says that just because there are strange creatures in other worlds doesn't negate the religious teachings of Christianity. But I think there are some true believers. At our country place, there's a man who says they're just demons and we shouldn't even talk about it because it'll make them more manifest. So, okay, I don't talk to him about it.
Let's go on to, let's see here. Let's go to Super Crazy. Do you think that Bigfoot and other cryptids are somehow connected to this UFO phenomena? Have you looked into that yet?
First of all, I like this person's name. I did not get into that at all. I approached it from trying to make the book as credible as possible, staying as close as possible to purely military until I got to chapter 16 when I felt I had to deal with crop circles, cattle mutilations, and alien abductions. But I didn't get into cryptids, Bigfoot, any other creatures that are very extreme, even more elusive and difficult to pin down as far as evidence goes than the UFO phenomena are.
Paulie is asking, oh, we already had that question. I apologize. Let's go to T-Bone. Have you ever had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and what circumstance would make you break it?
I have not, and if it were a matter of life or death, particularly for more than a few people, I would feel pretty much obligated. Would I have the courage to go ahead and do it? I couldn't say right now, but no, I've never served in military, law enforcement, any place where I've had to sign such an agreement.
J Truth Seeker is asking, what do you think of other ET humans here living hidden on the Earth who are not associated with the Greys, like the ones living under the ocean in hidden bases?
There may be several races. There also, it seems from what I read, I believe it was in Dr. Jacobs' books, that some of the hybrids go native. They begin to appreciate art and music and good food and individuality, and they drift away from the what to me is evidently a very closely controlled, regimented society where, I think I said it in the book, the way the aliens monitor the ones of lower status in our society by reading their thoughts makes Orwell's thought police seem like kindergarten stuff.
Let's go over to, let's see here. Where can we go next? Well, what do you think of the latest hearings that are allegedly going to happen on November 13th? Nancy Mace coming out, who's chairing the event, basically saying that no matter what happens with the election, this hearing will go on. What's your thoughts of that?
Well, I hope so. I was surprised. I'm looking right now at page 225. I began covering the congressional hearings of 17 May 2022. Another thing that I found very convincing was just the look on some of the senators' faces when they came out of the closed hearing, and they were in shock over what they just heard. So, yeah, I applaud it. I hope that it goes forward. I hope that they can... Actually, I contacted all the people who've expressed an interest or who are on that committee about this book, because I would like them to look in there and see some of the things that have been held back from them. I was very disappointed by the witnesses at the hearings who seemed to know too little to be believed. They were obviously hiding a lot of facts from the congressional investigators.
There seems to be not much news that comes out of these types of hearings, that we might get a few more cookie crumbs. But if you were one running the hearings, what would you want to come out?
Yeah, well, not knowing what's in there, I would have to say we'd have to begin with generalities. I think sometimes it looks as if to prevent a mass shock, they're letting things out a little at a time. And I think that they're trying to present broad generalities and let it soak in, and then maybe get a little more specific and let people get used to that and so on, until finally they just out and out say, okay, look, Bob Lazar was right. Look at this thing. It's parked in Area 51. We'll see. I hope so.
Well, we're going to see what happens. I don't expect much. They've already stated that they are not going to be bringing in a multitude of witnesses in order to break this. I'm curious to see who's going to be on their list of people who are actually going to speak. If it is people, maybe it might be a single person, but I just don't understand what's going on, because everything they really want to talk about seems to have to go behind closed doors in a skiff. And I don't know if I agree with that very much, because how can you ask for transparency on this subject if you're not being transparent in the public hearings?
Yeah, that's. I made that point that it's a one-way street with them. They want to get a lot of information from us, but then they don't want to share anything of what they know, and they need to. Our researchers and investigators need to know what we need to know. We don't know what we don't know, and we can't operate. And as I say, we cannot technologically catch up with these visitors from elsewhere if we're stumbling around in the dark.
But isn't that what they are doing, is stumbling around like, chickens with their heads cut off? They're running around, trying to figure out what's going on. And yet there's this entire governmental military conspiratorial world that is happening all around them that have the answers, but nobody from those groups wants to talk to them about it.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. There's some hope because governments like the French, the Peruvians, some others, I think Chile, are beginning to open up more.
Do you think they would have the pull of that happening?
Well, I think they can at least tell us more than we know now. I don't know how much, because obviously, despite recent developments over recent decades, the United States is pretty much still calling the shots.
And nobody seems to really be going against that. I know, me being in Canada, we don't see our government going against what the U.S. is saying. The biggest difference that we have is there is this threat narrative that is going on within the government, about how much danger this could be. Whereas the Canadian side, we're going to be waiting until the end of November, maybe early December, when their report called the Sky Canada Project comes out, where they're taking more of a scientific approach to this.
And we need that. And I think a little bit here, a little bit there will still, I didn't think I would uncover so much information from open sources when I began writing this book.
And if you hear that siren, that is not aliens coming through. That is, about 400, 500 yards away is the fire hall, and they still use an air raid siren to call the volunteer firefighters.
I thought it was out of time.
It's going to ring one more time. Here we go. It makes for good ambiance.
Yeah.
It really does. The only crappy part about it is, somebody is hurt, and at this time of night, it's usually vehicle versus deer or vehicle versus moose.
Well, I'm a child of the nuclear age, and we used to hear the sirens every Tuesday morning, and we used to have the duck cover hold drills and all that stuff. So, yeah, I'm used to those.
Yeah. I don't know why they've never taken them down. I mean, they all get text messages show up at the fire hall. But that's the beauty. God bless them. Any firefighter out there and emergency response person, they are great. Super Crazy has a question for you, asking, what do you think about the Nazca mummies? Do you think they are ETs?
No. The short answer is no.
What do you think they are? Do you think they're just little, paper mache type puppets?
Well, I think the ones in Mexico were determined to be dolls, intended to be dolls or idols stitched together from animal parts. So I really don't know. I didn't go into them too far. My decision was pretty much a snap decision, and the non-military incidents in my book, like the disappearance of Australian pilot Frederick Valentich, generally have some of a tie-in, or they can be somewhat corroborated. So that was kind of didn't fit in, so I didn't investigate it.
Let's go to probably the final question of the night. This, as we got about 3.5 minutes left. This comes from Cat the Kit. Do you think extraterrestrial disclosure will come from governments or the ETs themselves?
That's a great question. Some people think we should do it ourselves before they do something really dramatic and obvious. That might cause a panic. I think we do have to do what I thought was the government's policy here for the past couple of years, but lately they seem to be backpedaling fast. But I thought that they'd be letting things out a little at a time until people were more or less conditioned to accept the fact. Because there's still a lot of people who just, as an automatic knee-jerk reaction, they refuse to accept anything about UFO phenomena. And that includes the alien abductions, cattle mutilations, crop circles.
I think that we are in a confirmation movement. We are not going to be here to get any sort of confirmation that there are things going on. They're going to say, yeah, we got these strange things. We don't know what they are. They're going to play dumb and continue to play dumb. And I think eventually, probably within the next couple of decades, that's where all of a sudden these younger generations, like for instance, when my 11-year-old son is probably in his 30s, we might have something go on there. So that's what I think what's going to happen.
Well, part of the reason I wrote the book is to show people what we do know based over the past few decades. And a lot of people, it's kind of slipped into the past. For example, the disappearance of that jet in 1953.
90 seconds to go here, Robert, and I want to say a big thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on this show and to be a part of it, because you took on a topic that you've really gone gangbusters and jumped into the deep end trying to find out solutions to what these stories are of military encounters with UFOs. In the end game here, what's the one thing that you have learned?
The one thing I've learned is that before I was more inclined to believe the stories that the extraterrestrial visitors are here to help us, the close encounters of the third kind type of ending. But now I'm really concerned. Should we be concerned? Yes, we should be very concerned.
Well, don't give up on them aliens yet, because they haven't given up on you. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm not giving up. And I really enjoyed being on your show, Dave.
Tell everybody where they can find your book.
Well, it's available directly from Pen and Sword right now. But overseas shipping costs are a little bit steep, so you might want to wait a little bit and get it from Amazon when it's cheaper, which I'm told will be the 30th of December.
Love it. Love it. Robert Allred, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Coming up next, as we get ready to kick off hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio, Swamp Dweller is going to join us to get things going. And then Extra Small Lee Strauss and Jacques Armone are going to join us to talk about some cryptid stories. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Robert, thank you very much, my friend.
Likewise, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about my book and explore the whole topic.
It's been a lot of fun. Keep us in touch when your next book comes out because we'd love to have you back.
Will do.
All right, my friend. You take care.
Take care out there, sir.
Bye-bye. I'll be right back, everybody. All right. That was fun. That was fun. We got like 90 seconds. Lee currently looks like Mike Myers from the SNL skit Sprockets right now. He's doing the dance too. Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird watching Jack spit into her glasses to clean her lenses. It's a new hawk tour. Oh, thank you tonight to Necessary Dialogue, Deveruni ×2. T-Bone, my man, Mel WD40, Deanna, and Richard for the great super chats. We really appreciate the love and support. And don't forget, everybody, you can head to our website, spacedoutradio.com. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So let's make sure that we get them going. Get your gear on. Send me a photo so we can put it on our website. We greatly appreciate it. Here we go, everybody. All right, let's kick off hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Swamp Dweller coming up next. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in. We greatly appreciate it. Listening. Reminder to all of you, or heck with that. Let's just say hello. Hello to everybody listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. Hey Swamp Dweller, I wanted to say that everything in the story is true and happened to me and gives me chills to this day. I live in southern parts of India, where I go visit my grandmother's house every year during the winter and Christmas time. I was 12 years old at the time and was very excited to go there. Once I reached it and spent a few days there, my 3 cousins planned an overnight camping trip in the woods near my house. We had gone camping in the same place before with our parents. It was fun, so I was excited to do it again. In the afternoon, we left carrying tents, sleeping bags, torches, and other necessities we would need. We went deep into the woods at this point. We decided on a place to set up our tent. After we set up our tent, we decided to go to a famous waterfall in the area that people often visit. Keep in mind, I also had brought my dog at the time, a 2-year-old German Shepherd, and my 3 cousins were at the ages of 15, 14, and 17. So I was the youngest. We left to see the waterfall and followed a well-marked trail in the mountainy woods. We reached the waterfall and spent some time there, sitting on a vast tree log playing Uno to keep us entertained. Before we knew it, it was getting dark and we decided to go back to our tent to sleep. It was a 5-person personal tent, so it was big enough for all of us, including my dog. But it was already dark when we returned to our tent. We turned on our flashlights and headed back on the trail. Soon after we started from the waterfall, the path split into 2 tracks. We had been here multiple times and didn't ever remember being 2 routes. But we did pick one and continued walking. 5 minutes later, my dog started acting scared and was whining. Soon after that, the woods went utterly silent. It was almost instantaneous. This creeped all of us out, and I felt like I was being watched and felt like there was this insane sense of dread enveloping me. We kept walking back, slightly faster though. As soon as we started walking back, I could have swore I started hearing a whistling sound coming from behind me every so often. At one point all of us looked, but the whistle sounded very faint and from very far away. It creeped me out, but I didn't think much of it. Around a minute later, I heard the same whistle again, but this time it sounded a lot closer and a lot louder. When I looked back, we saw a pair of glowing yellow eyes, and we pointed our flashlights at it. It seemed to disappear upon the light hitting it. My dog at this point started sprinting, and so did me and my cousins. It felt like I ran for hours before we finally saw our tent and quickly got inside. We were all terrified of what had just happened. We had no idea what we just encountered. We all tried not to make a noise and fall asleep. I was terrified and still felt like I was being watched, and I couldn't fall asleep at all. And I just remembered that the tent was old and had a couple of small holes here and there. What seemed like an hour later, I heard footsteps outside the tent, sending shivers down my spine as it circled our tent. After making a full circle, I noticed it stopped, and I decided to peer out one of the small holes in the tent. What I saw, to this day, still gives me nightmares. I'll describe it the best I can, and I guess this is how I can describe it. It was very tall. It was some sort of creature with long arms. I assumed it was at least 7 feet tall. It had antlers and huge claws covered in a red liquid, what I presumed to be blood. It had sharp teeth and glowing yellow eyes. It stood on 2 legs like a human. I froze. I could barely breathe. I watched it stand there for what felt like hours, before I saw it bend and run away back into the woods on all fours. As soon as the sunlight was visible and I knew it was daytime, my cousins and I quickly packed up our stuff and got the heck out of there, terrified. I have never told anyone this story except my grandmother. The scarier part is that 3 months later, a group of 3 people were declared missing in that same forest. Only one of their corpses were ever found.
Well, that's nothing short of creepy right there. Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another great show. We appreciate you kicking off hour number 3 each and every night. If you want more, he's got thousands of stories. Go to YouTube, type in Swamp Dweller, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Let's bring in Jackie and Extra Small.
Oh, hello, Jackie.
Jackie Harmon, Lee Strauss, good to have you both back on Spaced Out Radio as we do a little bit of a change up on our lineup here. We're still working on it, but Jackie's going to be coming in on Friday nights now. And if Lee wants to show up in his Extra Small t-shirts, make himself look more jacked and ripped, he can do that too. How you guys doing? Jackie will get you to unmute your mic. Lee, how you doing?
Doing fantastic. Just waiting for Jackie to unmute.
Yeah. She's still trying to figure out, what does this button do?
It's been a minute, but I'm happy to be back.
Thank goodness she doesn't have access to the nuclear suitcase.
There you go.
That would be dangerous. That would be dangerous.
No
Robin
one would
Hayes
be safe.
was on last night where she was talking about how we're getting into that time of year, Jackie, where there's a lot of action with cryptids. They're moving around. They're they see the animals going into rutting season and getting a little bit more focused on mating rather than safety. And they seem to be a little bit more, lack of a better term, stupid, because they're so hooked up on, playing a little Barry White by a fire out in the forest snow.
Exactly.
In your research, do you notice this too?
Yeah, actually, this is the perfect time of year where they really are out more mating, and September, October is a really big mating season time of the year. and then they do it again in the spring. So people are starting to see a lot more cryptids showing up on cameras, trail cams, even like the rings on people's like front porches. Things are running by. They're capturing all kinds of crazy stuff. So yeah, I do actually know that this is a big, big, big time for mating. So very interesting things popping up left and right lately. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
What's your thoughts, Lee?
Well, you've got a lot more hunters going out this time of year too. They're headed out there to do their, what they do, scouting first of all, of course, a lot, and then into hunting season. So right now, there's a lot of people seeing a lot of things that maybe normally wouldn't be seen this time, during this time of year. So it's definitely, a time of year where you want to keep your eyes open and bring some cameras with you or whatever you got when you're out there, just in case you do see something.
What should people look for when they're out in the forest, Lee?
Well, twisted, broken branches, what look like, human footprints that could be larger than a normal human's footprint. You want to look for, logs that are crossed over and stacked in a certain way. Things that maybe a root ball is actually sticking up in the air, something odd that you wouldn't normally see when you go out in the woods. Those are the type of things that you're going to look for. Also look at the bark on trees. A lot of the times you'll see bear marks on the trees, scratching marks and stuff like that. But if the bark has like been peeled away, like I have seen sometimes to get at some of the insects, it doesn't make sense for a bear to actually like peel it down. Usually they just tear things down. So those sorts of things you want to look for.
Yeah, I actually one time cut down a tree that had a bunch of bear markings and teeth markings on it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of intimidating, not going to lie. And don't worry, environmentalists, it was a dead tree. Don't cut live ones up here. Don't cut live ones. No. Here's the thing for me when I'm out in the forest. I always go by feel. Now, maybe because I kind of know what I'm feeling for, I've been out there enough. But as much as I'm looking for footprints, as much as I'm looking for structures and signs and things that may catch my eye, the one thing that I've learned about searching for Sasquatch, as well as, now that I guess I can consider myself a hunter now, is that there are no straight lines in the forest. Outside of the trees going up, there are no horizontal straight lines in the forest unless a tree is fallen. And that's what you need to look around. What when we're looking deep into the trees, let's say we're all driving a logging road and we're in a forested area. Jax, what should we be looking for?
Well, if you're driving up in a logging area, first of all, you're gonna have a lot of trees down anyway. So you really need to be careful about what you look for, and it has to look like something that's not natural, something that a human's not going to like take a tree and lay down. They do make Sasquatch, Bigfoot. They create very unique different features and structures that are not natural. And these are things that you want to look for, things that are very, very not human, natural looking things. A lot of times they'll take the trees and completely turn them upside down. The way they twist the tree, obviously they're not going to go in and cut a tree with a saw. So you're just looking for very unnatural things that humans would never create. And those are the kind of things that, catch your eye. You're also looking for smells and, just different things that aren't human, like you're going to find interesting things like nests. Humans aren't going to make a nest, at least not an enormous one by any means. And oftentimes people don't realize that Bigfoot creatures actually use the trees upward, not just on the ground. They're not just walking around using the ground. A lot of times they're actually using the trees. So a lot of times people forget to look up and realize that they're looking for things up in the trees, and sometimes they're actually in the trees themselves. So you have to remember to look up, not just walk around with your head down.
That's actually a good point, because when you go into the forest anyways, you should always have your eyes up on the trees. We're always looking around. But guess what? That's where the mountain lions are hiding.
Yep.
That's where bears are hiding. And they have no problem jumping down to pounce on you. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't the Sasquatch be there? It
Yeah.
just makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I've actually heard multiple times where when people have sightings, especially hunters, that they'll say the very first time they ever saw one was up in a tree. It wasn't on the ground at all. And I've heard these stories over the years. Multiple people say it was way up in the tree and it would jump from tree to tree. So it has a lot of strength to go from, it's kind of reminds me of like a spider monkey, except it's obviously way larger. But they have the ability to do that.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because if you look at Jan Maccabee's experience from a few years ago, that was on David Politis's Missing 411, where she was up in her deer stand hunting on her
Mhm.
property, and all of a sudden she heard this noise in the trees and saw this predator type object, like what do they call it, glimmer man,
Mhm.
going through the trees. And many people believe that Sasquatch can actually camouflage itself into this glimmer man type of oddity.
Yeah.
And she got a picture of it. It was literally in
Oh,
the
wow.
tree beside her. And she
Wow.
had,
Yeah.
she had the fortitude to not be scared, which the majority of us would. I know I would have probably dropped my phone, but she had the ability and the comprehension to actually take a picture of this. And the
That's
weird
awesome.
part about that story, if you've never heard it before,
Mhm.
is at that exact same moment, about 3-4 miles away, the high school marching band was practicing on the football field for homecoming. And when they looked up, some of them looked up, they actually saw a UFO clear as day overhead at that exact same moment. Now, a lot of people
Yeah.
who have been in Sasquatch areas also claim UFO sightings. Lee, you've been in the forest of Washington, D.C.
Yep.
Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Well, not so much Washington, D.C., but Washington
I'm
State.
sorry,
Yeah.
I apologize.
No, no worries. No worries. You know, I have never seen a UFO with a Bigfoot, that sort of thing, but I've had an incident where we had three orbs above us that were seen by another group that we had farther down near the lake, and they were looking up at us, and they said that they saw these three orbs, and it was actually caught on video. And this is while my partner and I were hearing something coming up the hill towards us, dragging something up the hill towards us, and then was making vocalizations at us, grunting at us. And we didn't have, a thermal camera at the time, so we were pretty freaked out. We did everything we could. We played music loud, we did all this stuff, but this thing just kept coming and grunting at us. And finally we said, screw it, we're throwing all the equipment in the back of the truck, we're hauling butt down there, out of there. It was actually Dave Mason, if anybody knows who Dave Mason is, that caught the footage of the three orange orbs above us that we did. So, that was an incident where you can say we had what we thought was possibly a Sasquatch with UFOs. So, yeah, pretty
How about your
scary.
thoughts, Jackie? Have you ever had an encounter with both?
Yeah, actually, we have had some strange incidences where I will be in the woods having an experience where there's, you'll hear like the Bigfoot vocalizations, or we'll have the exact same scenario with the orbs. They're often like an orange golden orb. Usually there's 3 of them, or they're like pure white. And then we'll also have someone nearby say that they've had a UFO experience in the exact same woods area that we're in. That's why I claim, and have been for years, that Bigfoot is interdimensional being. I do believe that they're connected 100%. I've been saying this for many years. For a very long time, people thought I was crazy. And I absolutely believe that they're very connected. So, yeah, I've had the experience where I've seen the orbs, and then had why I'm having an experience with Bigfoot. They're having an experience with a UFO, exact same location. So, yeah, 100%. I believe that that is, what happens. I believe that they're connected.
I think they are too. But it's amazing though how these different clans act. Like you've been around clans, like when you guys were at Mount Adams, there was a very curious clan there that wasn't too afraid to make noise around you before they got all touchy-feely on you there, Jack.
Yeah.
But there's also clans that are more protective of areas, like our one clan up here.
Yeah.
Mount St. Helens seems to have very protective clans around there as well. And other areas are just great curiosity where, you're in their area. They know you're there. They may be curious about what you're doing there, and they're going to watch you. They may not show you. They may not whoop. They may not howl. They may not talk, but their eyeballs are on you. I mean, talk about the different clans, Jackie, that you have had or talked about in your cryptid encounters and in talking to other researchers as well.
Yeah, I've actually had a multiple, and it's funny that you would even say this, because I was just having a conversation with a cousin of mine recently. We grew up doing this together with my family, and we were talking about how different they really are in different areas. Exactly what you're talking about. Like one area, you can have a very protective, Bigfoot community where they don't want you to come any closer, and they're going to show themselves to you. A lot of times we'll see more of like a curious, where you'll hear the whoops, you'll hear the whistles, you'll hear the knocks. Perfect example of like when Lee and I were in Mount Adams, like we kept hearing them all day long, but yet they wouldn't come and really show themselves to us. Now we saw evidence all the way around us until we literally crawled inside a tent. All of a sudden, they were just surrounding us and curious, not of only us, but every single thing we had there. We have audio of this where they're walking around for hours, touching every single thing we have. Yet we get up in the morning and there's literally almost zero evidence of anything being touched or moved. But yet we have the audio to prove it, that they're there. So it's interesting how different they can be. But yeah, I've seen it over the years many, many times. And it's funny too, because patterns, like I've talked about before, will also show you what kind of community you're dealing with. And a lot of people don't even realize that. The structures that they build will show if it's a family. They'll also show if they've moved on. They'll show different things like, if it's just passing through, or if they actually live there. So it just depends on what you see over time. And those patterns really do become the evidence of what's going on there and what's already been there. So it's quite interesting.
Lee, we have 30 seconds. I want you to respond.
Well, in the different places I've been here in Washington State, besides Mount Adams, I've had Bigfoot encounters that haven't been so nice. When I had those big rocks thrown down in front of me, I mean, I didn't really consider that hostile, but they needed me to get out of there for whatever reason. They were trying to scare me out of there. And so these different clans, you're right. They have different purposes. Whatever that is either they don't want people there, or they're very curious about who you are. And maybe that's not just about the location. Maybe that's
Lee, we'll finish that up. We'll come back. Lee and Jack's Cryptid Report here on Spaced Out Radio.
This is Spaced Out Radio, and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, guys, we're clear.
Okay.
That was fun.
Yeah. It was a right cutoff.
That was a ripe cutoff.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, so much going on out there that I've experienced that I've never seen one, you know, with my naked eye. So.
Mm.
It's a coming, bud.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just ask for it.
Yeah, you know, you're right about that. Things that, you know, we've asked
Yeah.
for in the UFO world, or, you know, we've seen, which is pretty crazy. So maybe it works the same way with a Sasquatch.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
I definitely believe that.
Mm-hmm. It's like they know what you're thinking.
Well, they already know we're there before we're there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
Somehow.
they get used to us too. That's something that I grew up with, that they get used to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you become familiar.
Yeah.
Oh, I fully agree.
Yeah. Yeah. They remember you. They know it's you. And then they get familiar with like who you are as a person, how you act, what you want, what you're looking for, and how they react to you. Like, for instance, when you guys got gifted that stick, that's one reaching out to you,
Mm-hmm.
letting you
I-
know everything's okay.
When we come back from the break, we'll get to your stories that you guys wanted to kind of go over tonight, okay?
Okay.
All right. Oh, I like Brown Dwarf's question. Has Sasquatch had a Lee sighting?
Oh yeah. Many a Lee sighting out there in Washington State.
Right? Right? Why not?
Yeah. I think
That's funny.
I think certain people, you know, it seems like the phenomena follows certain people around. For some
We're
reason.
shared energy. That's people forget that we're all energy,
Mm-hmm.
and so are they. And so we connect if you remember it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think the other part of that is just being in, you know, part of that would be just being in the right place at the right time, of course, because people see Sasquatch run across the road or whatever the case may be. And that really makes me think too, because you can hear a car coming from way off. So why would you be on the road, running across the road in front of a car? Unless you want to be seen.
There's one story. I don't know if I ever told you this story, Lee. There's one story around here about 1986. And I've talked to the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Going out to one of the lakes on a Friday night, or I think it was a Friday night or Saturday night. Him and his girlfriend, and he had one of the Camaros that had the, I think it was like an 82, 83, 84 Camaro, and the leg room was way deep underneath the dashboard. Anyways, they're driving along one of the roads, and they thought there was a bear up ahead, standing on two legs. All of a sudden, it steps out of the ditch and slams its hand on the top part of the windshield.
Whoa.
He hammers the brakes. Girlfriend freaks out, crawls underneath the dashboard into the foot compartment, and in his reverse lights, he sees the creature walking across the road and up an embankment.
Wow.
Yeah. And his name is Dave as well. And I've talked to Dave, and Dave was like, dude, that haunts me to this day. You know?
Yeah, it sounds like a
Yeah.
serious
Good night, Mama
superiority
Cat.
complex.
Yep. I agree.
I know that feeling all too well.
You got that right. We got about 20
Yeah.
seconds here. Excuse me. Thank you to Necessary Dialogue, Deanna, Mel WD40 for the lube chat, T-Bone, my man, Deb ×2, and Richard for the super chats. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Why, Jackie?
Because we don't have ugly swag.
No ugly swag,
No
people.
ugly
Go look
swag.
good. Go look good. Look like Lee. Look at that shirt. Here we go, everybody. All right, here comes the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Lee and Jack stuck in the Cryptid Report. My name is Dave Scott. We greatly appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can check us out on every major podcast network as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Jackie Harmon, Lee Strauss, they are here for the Cryptid Report. You guys wanted to share a personal story with each other and our audience. Who wants to go first? Should we flip a coin?
She's already pointing at me. So
All right, Lee,
you
you
go
can go.
Well, let me take you into Washington State here a little bit. We have probably 12, 13, or 14 islands that are called the San Juan Islands, and they're quite beautiful. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of madrona trees, but madrona trees litter these islands, and they're just these twisted, gnarly, beautiful trees that we have here in Washington, Canada as well, actually. But in the San Juans, there's deer running everywhere. People live up there. You know, there's hotels. It's just pristine, gorgeous, like bare rock on the water, in the salt, in the sound. And there was a sighting of a Dogman. Now, I thought Dogmen were from back east, that we didn't have anything like this here in Washington State, but I was actually pretty interested in it. So a little bit of research into Dogman. Never seen anything like this before until I started researching about it. And here in the San Juans, there's a island called Orcas Island. And on this island, there is a lake called Cascade Lake, where a lot of people go to camp during the summertime. Well, there was a family of 2 children and 2 adults, husband and wife. And they were in a tent, and they heard some noise in the morning. And the wife had already gotten up. She was going to go outside. She was going to start cooking, breakfast, eggs, bacon, whatever, hash browns or whatever it is that she was getting ready to do. And they all heard this growling. She's like already partway out of the tent, and she's looking over, and she can see a figure off in the tree line. And it had just become dusk, it's starting to get lighter out there. And she can see a figure with this long snout, and she can see it like growling and see the teeth, and she describes the mouth like the skin was peeling back to show its fangs. And she was absolutely terrified. She said this thing had these big ears, like a dog ears, sticking up and looking at her and growling. So she's freaking out. She gets back in her tent with her husband and the kids, and like, we're not going anywhere, right? And so they're trying to call somebody on their phone, trying to, get somebody out there to, help and maybe chase this thing off or whatever like that. But they can hear this thing walking around outside their tent and, around their campsite. And then, like half hour later, the thing just goes away. But that's a sighting that was seen right here in Washington State in the San Juan Islands. And I'm like, wow, that's incredible. I need to go check that out for sure.
Not with me or
It's
not.
no these dogman type creatures,
Uh-huh.
which up until a number of years ago, nobody really talked about them in the western part of North America. And now people are having these close encounter sightings.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
This
it's
one
only been
happened.
about the last 5 to
This
10 years.
Yeah, this one happened back in 2017.
Yeah.
Mhm. And so I don't know what's causing this. If this some kind of metamorphosis of a human, or if this is some kind of government program. I have no idea where this thing comes from. It could be like Sasquatch, I don't know, but I'd like to
Half
know
man,
more.
half wolf man, or what do they call that? Werewolf or something.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Now, my family's from the South, and I lived down there near New Orleans for 4 years, and I used to hear a lot about Dogman or Wolfman or whatever it was they called it. And I'm sure they have other names in New Orleans, but I used to hear about it quite often when I lived down there about them running in families. And sometimes you might have, like, say, an uncle or whoever might actually have something interesting going on with them where you might notice weird scratches and weird things on their arms and hands all the time. And some of the families would claim that they actually saw them turn into like a dogman or a werewolf or something. So I remember hearing about that growing up and live when I lived down there a lot. So yeah, the West Coast not so much, but down in the South for sure.
Well, I wonder if these sort of people, migrated up in here to Washington State or even into Canada, who knows
Maybe.
where. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
Out
It is.
of anything that I don't want to encounter,
Uh-huh.
that is one of that's the one. I just
Yeah, I
do
don't
not.
have any interest in that one either.
Me either.
They,
It just scares the daylights out of me.
that and land sharks for you, I imagine. Land sharks are probably a big no-no.
Oh man, don't even bring up land sharks. That's just scary, nightmarish stuff.
Sharknado.
Sharknado's going to be happening.
That's
Terrible.
funny. That's hilarious.
I
Yeah.
think so. Jackie, what's your story?
Well, since we're coming up on Halloween, I want to tell you guys a story that I just read about a family. And this actually happened on Halloween last year. It wasn't something like from this year, but it was something Halloween related, and I wanted to share it. I thought it was really interesting. It was a family of four, the mom, dad, two daughters, and the daughters were teenage age. And one of the girls was laying in bed, and I think she was just looking at her phone or an iPad or something. And she said something, she like saw something out of the corner of her eye. And she happened to just pull it down and look over. And she says it was her sister standing at the edge of her bed, soaking wet. And she just had this very strange look about her. And it freaked her sister out really bad. And she just thought, like, what in the world happened to you? She said she leaned over to go. Now, her sister never said a word to her at the end of the bed. So she said she leaned over or got up to grab a towel to help her sister out. But the second she turned back to hand it to her, she was gone. And she said, what in the world? Like, she was just there. I know she was just there. So she got up and she went into her room to go check on her. She thought maybe she ran off into the other room. And she said she found her laying in bed, sound asleep, and dry as a bone. So she thought, well, that was really weird. Maybe I fell asleep and it was just me dreaming or something. She thought that was strange. And I swear to God, I thought I saw my sister standing there. So she goes on back to bed. She gets up the next morning and she's talking to her sister. And her sister, before she could even say anything to her sister, tells her that she had a dream about a man who had murdered her and she drowned in a lake. He drowned her in a lake that night in her dream.
Oh my.
And yeah, and the sister told her, she said, "Oh my God, I thought maybe I had like dreamt this, but I saw you standing at the end of my bed, soaking wet, and you did not look normal." And yeah, so I thought that was an interesting story to share with you guys, that something that actually happened on Halloween night, that would happen, and they shared their story. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some strange things going on. Dreams are crazy.
Mhm.
There's been some weird, strange dream stuff going on lately.
What's the weirdest dream you've ever had, Lee?
Oh boy, you're gonna love this. Um, so, a house I used to live at when I was growing up had this big bay window, huge bay window, and I would be home alone a lot in this house because one of my parents, my dad, stepfather, owned 2 gas stations, so he would always come home about 7 o'clock at night. And my mother owned her own insurance agency, so I really, had the run of the house, or until later at night. Dinner wasn't until like 9 sometimes. But I dreamt that I heard a knock at the door. And it made me feel really funny in the dream. I was kind of freaked out about it, actually, because nobody was home and it was just me. And it was quite a loud knock. So what I did is I got down on all fours and scooted over towards the window and kind of peeked up over the edge of the window there to see what was outside. And there was some man that I had no idea was just knocking at the door. You know what I mean? And then I saw him shift and like turn to look in the window, and I scooted down. I got down on all fours, really low to the ground, right? And I waited for, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes in my dream. And then I slowly started to come up and look, and his face was pressed right against glass, right where I poked my head back up. And that was a lot for me. I've never forgot that dream. That just scared the bejesus out of me. Yeah, that was bad.
How about you, Jax?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I still have nightmares about that Bigfoot giving me the rub down. So I'm gonna say that one right now is topping all the dreams I've ever had. But they get very vivid. And the weird thing is, I've had related dreams probably over the last 2 or 3 months now, where there'll be aliens standing outside my bedroom door. And it's weird because I'll be laying in bed, and I know that they're outside my door, but it feels real, like it's not a dream. And then I'll look up, and then there's 3 of them standing at the end of my bed, watching me, standing over me, kind of leaning over, watching me. Yet I know they're still outside, like they're waiting for them to bring me out or something. So, and it's very relatable to what happened, I think, when we were in Mount Adams, and then the light coming into the tent the second night we were there, with the time missing and all that, because I've never had dreams like that till then. But it's very bizarre.
I think for me, the strangest dream that I ever had outside of my alien encounters is the one that I had a couple years ago where I died.
Ooh.
I didn't know I didn't know I was dead, and then all I remember is being dropped off a wharf, like a lake wharf, and into the water. And it wasn't very deep. It was like, I don't know, 15, 20 feet deep. And I felt myself going down, and I realized that I wasn't breathing. But I could see everything through my eyes. And I could watch, as the light goes from bright in the water until it gets a little darker, a little darker, a little darker. And I could see fish swimming around, and I could feel myself gently touch on the sand, like very soft sand underneath the water. And I remember staring up, and I was like, how am I going to get out of here? I can't move. I can't move my feet. I can't move my arms. I'm dead. But I'm watching all of this happen. And then I start panicking, like, oh my God, like, what is this going on? These fish around me are going to eat me. Like, eventually, they're going to eat me. And it freaked me the hell out because there was nothing I could do. And it's like, I'm here forever. Like, and then I started weirdly thinking that, well, I have to wait for them to eat my body to release my soul, so that way I could leave. And then I woke up.
Oh,
But it was weird, man.
I would hate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't like that one.
No wonder you don't like the water.
I would take alien
I
abduction
hate the ocean.
for that anytime.
Yeah. That's like a horrible nightmare of mine, to be out in the water, something horrible happened to me, and then get eaten by like shark or fish or whatever. Like, it's just I
Yep.
can't even stand the thought of that. Listening to that made my skin crawl.
Just grosses me right out.
Oh yeah.
Thought of it grosses me right out.
Ugh, that's
Well,
awful.
I have a healthy fear of the water, and that's why I bought a kayak to actually get out on the water to hopefully get over my fear of being, in deep water. And still to this day, I'm scared of doing it, but I'll do it. And it's definitely a healthy fear. It is, for sure.
Yeah.
Even with a life vest on and all that.
I don't do the kayak thing. I don't do the kayak thing. But yeah. Have you this one lake, speaking of kayaking, I used to belly boat a lot. Like go fishing in like an inner tube and belly boat. You got flippers on your feet. Great exercise, by the way. And fantastic on the knees. And in summer, you don't even wear your chest waders. You just go in shorts. And it's so much fun. But we used to go to this one lake out by Harrison Hot Springs. And nothing ever happened to me there. But the one time I didn't go, there's this valley, like the lake is at the top of the mountain, and there's these mountain crests kind of coming down. And right from that mountain crest, my buddies heard this giant roar coming from it. And, they knew it wasn't a bear. They knew it wasn't a cougar. They knew it wasn't a coyote. And there's no wolves. There's no big predators there outside of them. And they were just in the middle of the lake, frozen. They were scared to move. And another time at that lake, we had gone fishing. And one of our outdoor buddies, Paul is his name, he decided that he was going to camp there for the night. He's Mr. Wilderness, like Les Stroud combined with John Rambo. Okay, like just like nut bar wannabe soldier / off the grid kind of guy. Anyways, he decides he's going to camp there. So we leave there probably about 10 o'clock, and it's a long, windy, gravel, rocky road on the way down. And we get down the mountain, come back probably, late morning the next morning, and he's as white as a ghost. And he goes, I am never staying up here again. We're like, what happened? He goes, I maybe got 45 minutes sleep. He's like, there was something out there. I don't know what it was. But there was something out there that I just felt I needed to be on alert with my shotgun beside me the entire time. And so I guess at around 2:00 in the morning, when he was just starting to fall asleep, the road into the lake, like you could drive by this road and not even know that there was a lake in there.
Mhm.
Okay, this gorgeous, gorgeous lake. And it's a short, like maybe, 40 yards from the main road into where this lake is. But it was like real hilly, like you needed a 4x4 to get in there. Okay. And I guess on the main road, he kept hearing the sound of metal dragging and scraping across like sharp rocks.
Hmm.
And he couldn't figure it out because he didn't hear any traffic. He didn't hear any people. And yet other people have been out there in the forest around Sasquatch encounters, have heard this scraping of metal, like someone takes an aluminum sheet and starts scraping it really tightly against the ground, or one of those high-pitched scrapes.
That's
And
scary.
he was hearing like grunting and all this kind of stuff,
Uh-huh.
and he just couldn't sleep.
No.
Could not sleep after that.
Hmm.
Scared the daylights out of him.
That's strange. I had an incident up in Northern California, just above Willow Creek, several years ago. I was camping. I was actually in a makeshift tent my friend decided to create, and he decided to go sleep in the truck. So I'm out there by myself, and for hours I could hear. I thought it sounded like a styrofoam cup being drug around across the ground, but it was like just being, you could tell it was just being drugged. Something was being drug across the ground. And it was just bizarre because it just went on forever. You could hear walking, you could hear grunts, and you could hear dragging, but it just sounded like someone took like a big old, like, cup from like 7-Eleven.
Oh, I hear you. Jackson Lee, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. It's been a pleasure. And good report. Talk to you next week as we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rock this in the background. His little brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat room tonight. YouTube, Twitch, Elgap, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friends,
we're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. As the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. There we go. We is clear as a whistle.
As a bell.
My dad is one of those people that pronounces the WH.
Whistle.
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 Where? Whistle.
Mm-hmm. That's talent
That's
right
funny.
there.
I want to shake him
Mhm.
for doing that.
You know,
And
it's
for the
really
record,
strange
yes,
trying to learn a new language and doing that.
Oh boy.
and yes, for the record, people, I'm still pissed off with Dairy Queen. Did you hear about this? Did you guys hear
No.
this story?
Oh, what?
So after hockey on Wednesday night, my son tried really hard. He had a really good practice. And so you know how kids are where they're like, I did really good. Can I get a treat? You know? Yeah, of course. I said, what do you want? He goes, can I get an ice cream cone from Dairy Queen? All right. So go to the window, open up a medium cone. He wants a little bit of whipped cream on top, maybe the size of a quarter. $6.28.
What?
They
The
charged me
whipped
not
cream
only
or the cone?
they charged me for the cone, and of course the medium cone, and then they charged me an extra $1 for about 3 cents of whipped cream.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And I don't get mad at stuff like that very often, but that just for some reason pissed
That's
me off.
ridiculous.
It pissed
That's
me
so
off,
dumb.
Yeah, that's
right?
crazy.
Like $6.28. I'm still upset.
I would be. I
I would've
remember
said, "Hand
that
me the
was like
can, I bought it."
$1.30. $1.30. I remember what, a
Oh
couple years
God, you
ago.
can't get nothing for $1.30 anymore. My God.
You can't even buy a pack of gum for $1 anymore.
Nope.
I'll tell you, kids today would be absolutely having a heyday going back to penny candies.
Yep.
Or grab as many as you can for 50 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Times have changed. It's everywhere. Doesn't even matter where.
Yeah, it's gotten so bad out there. I mean, you remember the old gumball machines, right? Or you put a quarter in or 2 quarters in and you'd get a gumball and stuff. You can't even find those things anymore. You probably have to slide your credit card in there just to get a gumball now.
Or you go to those video game places where you used to put in a quarter to play Donkey Kong or Centipede or whatever. They're now $50 to $3 a game. 50
Oh,
cents.
you can't even find those here. Nowadays, you have to go in and you have to prepay for like a pass or a
Yes.
special card, and
Mhm.
then the card pays for all the games.
Yep.
They don't even do the money thing here anymore.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Did you see the video that's gone viral of the old guy in the UK where he went to the grocery store and paid with money, and the grocery store tried to have him arrested because they are a cashless store, and they accused him of stealing. And his argument was, this is legal tenure when in this country.
Mhm.
I can pay for this whatever I want. He goes, I'm walking out with it. I've paid you for the product. And they're like, no, you haven't paid us. We don't accept that. And I haven't seen what happened, like the aftermath of everything, but it's getting ridiculous.
That's
Like
insane.
there's a lot of dumb out there right now, people.
Yep.
A lot of dumb. And I'm not picking on, I don't care who you vote for, who you side for, because both sides have their idiots on them.
Yep.
Okay. But there's a way too much dumb. This is what happened, and it started 30 years ago when we started allowing or electing people who started creating really dumb laws.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And this is what happens. This is, like up here, I don't know if you guys have it in Washington. I think you have it in California. The ban on plastic straws
Yeah.
and plastic forks and plastic bags at the grocery store.
Mhm.
So if you go to the grocery store where they give you plastic bags to put your vegetables in, they're so thin that, one tomato will rip through a bag. And how strong is a tomato? Okay?
Yeah.
And for a while there, when the paper straw thing came up
Oh.
in BC, I don't know what it was like down there.
Oh, it's
It's
same.
disgusting.
They're
Okay.
gross.
Okay. But up here, if you went to Starbucks, they were putting paper straws in plastic wrappers. Please tell
Well,
me.
the thing that blows my mind is they're putting the paper straw in a giant plastic cup.
Exactly. I go to Tim Hortons for an ice cap. I get a chemical-laced paper straw that
Yep.
is
Yeah.
not good for the environment. You can't even burn that thing because it's going to launch chemicals into the air and
Yeah.
into the environment. Okay, but I'm putting that crap in my mouth, and my Tim Hortons ice cap comes with a plastic cup with a plastic lid.
Yeah.
But don't give me a napkin. Now
Yeah.
up here, the thing is they don't give you napkins unless you ask for them. Remember you said courtesy was, here's a napkin with the meal?
Yep.
We don't get that here in BC anymore,
Wow.
right? No,
Yeah.
because we're full of dumb,
hmm
right?
Yeah, those paper straws dissolve in your drink too before you even get the darn thing down.
They're disgusting.
If
And
you get a
tastes
slushie,
like-
if you get a
it's
slushie,
wet cardboard.
if you get a slushie from 7-Eleven, you got to take at least 3-4 straws in order to make it through that drink. Otherwise, you're never going to make it.
It's just I refuse to use them. Matter of fact, we hardly ever see them anymore. People got so sick of it down here in California that we just won't deal with it. So now everybody's back to plastic. So I mean, for those of you who are against plastic, sorry, but we're sick of sucking down wet cardboard.
Yeah.
We're not doing it.
Well, what's funny about it was we just had an election here in British Columbia where for the first time in our history, they used idiotic voting machines from Dominion Lending.
Oof.
And guess what? Our election still is, which normally we would have the results the day of by human scrutineers, okay, who, if they try to pull some BS in an election, they go to jail.
Yeah.
They went to Dominion Lending. There is 50,000. Our population of British Columbia is just a hair over 5 million. Okay. And there's 50,000+ votes unaccounted for by these idiot machines. And they still haven't been able to figure out who won yet.
Wow.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
So we got to wait till the 28th because a lot of the morons who live near Vancouver, they like plastic cups with paper straws.
Gosh.
Yeah. And they are the ones who are where most of the seats are because most of the parliamentary seats go into the areas that have the most population.
That's
So
here.
the rest of our province gets screwed. And what's funny is that nobody is admitting to voting for the one party. Like everybody online, everybody's like, well, I voted for this party. I voted for this party. How could they have not won?
Yeah.
And yet
yeah.
nobody is admitting to voting for the other party who's been, who's raised taxes in BC 38 times in the last 4 years. 38 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I don't know if it's like this in California, but in BC, there's a real hunt for against multimillionaires and billionaires.
Yeah.
There's a hunt on against them.
Yeah.
And hunting, I mean hunting for, to, pay your fair share kind of.
Oh yeah, I know
Oh, yeah.
exactly what you're saying, and they're all leaving.
They are all leaving,
Yeah,
and they are
yeah, they are.
They are shutting down shop
They are
in DC.
huge companies here gone.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Speaking
But
of the straws, I was going to tell you something. I don't know about everywhere, but Starbucks here in California went from the straw, then they got rid of the straw, gave us the stupid paper straw, and then they finally got rid of those, and now they've got a bigger plastic top that looks like a sippy cup. So just makes no sense.
Yep.
Like it just gets like more plastic than before.
At my daytime job, I work with a lady named Laura, and Laura has a stash of bendy straws. So if she does a Tim Hortons run for us, my Tim Hortons cup always comes back with a bendy straw. This woman is a hero.
That's
Okay?
right.
She's an absolute hero that needs to be protected at all costs by every piece of 40-year-old machinery our military has. Okay?
I love it. I do
That's
the
Yeah.
exact same thing when I go to the grocery store. They sell these huge things of plastic straws, and I grab every single one I can get. They're like $1 or something per thing, and I'm like, for 400 plastic straws, yeah, I'm getting those. I bring
Yeah.
them home. I've got a huge stash here at the house. We love them.
I ordered my straws on Amazon,
I'm going to
but
start
not the
ordering.
plastic ones. Mine are
Yeah.
reusable.
Oh, well, I mean, listen, there's only so many straws I'm willing to wash, so
This is how bad it is in BC right now. I have a friend of mine, okay, close friend of mine. I'm not going to mention his name, okay, who a number of years ago was averaging about 33,000 to 36,000 a year. That's what he was making. And one day a bunch of us told him, but get into sales. Get into something you're really good at this kind of stuff. Just get into it. Give it a try. See what happens. You'll have success. Like building the dude up. Well, within like 2 years, he goes from making like 33, 34 grand a year up to making, 105, 110, 115 over the next number of years. And like, this is a dude who doesn't blow money.
No.
He's not like me. He's not foolish. Okay. And we were talking the other day and I said, how you doing? And he goes, dude, I remember those days when I was making like 30 grand a year and I saw all my buddies making like 80, 90, 100, 110,000 a year. And I thought, man, if I could ever get up to that, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to have my ATV. I'm going to have my boat. I'm going to have my RV. I'm going to own a nice place. I'm going to have my big, lifted up truck, and he goes, now that I'm here and it is the way it is, he goes, I never thought I would be making 100 grand a year and living paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
Right now in British Columbia, I think, T-Bone, I know you're listening, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's for every dollar, out of every $100 that you make, you are paying, I think, up to 68% tax on that money.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
when you think your federal income tax, your fake carbon tax, your provincial sales tax, your tax on the food, we make the gas, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And our gas is taxed like almost if you understood liters, it should cost us about 40 to 50 cents a liter. We are paying in areas up to $2 a liter.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. So in a gallon, there's 4 liters.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an F-150 truck or a Dodge Ram or whatever,
Yep.
okay, that say has a 90-liter tank, or for mathematics, let's say 80, so a 20-gallon tank, it's going to run you about $189 to fill the tank. We make the fuel here.
Wow.
Okay. So if you look at other countries, so Canada has the second or third biggest oil reserve in the world. If you go to Venezuela, where before they went woke and voted in a socialist government, now they're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
They were charging, I think, 8 to 15 cents a liter. So that's about 60 cents a gallon.
Wow.
Okay. And if you go to Dubai, I think it's 8 cents a liter, maybe 10 to 12 cents a liter if you want premium. So like when you guys are griping about like $3.50 or $3.50 a gallon,
Yeah.
our equation on that would be closer to $8 to $9 a gallon that we're paying. And we make the shit right here.
Wow.
We had no dinosaurs.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yep. It's not good. They
Dang.
just closed a refinery down there by you, Jackie. Or
Yeah.
they're in the process of doing so. So your gas is going to go up even higher than it is right now.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh-huh.
for a lot of people out there who don't know, like I'm serious, like I know I've already talked to Lee about it, but I'm seriously considering leaving California too. And there are so many reasons why I won't be able to buy a house.
Mhm.
I'm a single mom, and now they're saying that unless you are a 2-family income, you're not going to make it here. So,
The average house price in British Columbia. So when I bought in my area, the average house cost in my town was about $220,000 Canadian. That same average 5 years in the last 5 years has jumped up to over $458,000. In Vancouver, the greater Vancouver area, out to the lower mainland, the average house price is about 1.2 million.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're like here in Seattle area, we're at like 680 right now.
Yep.
US.
And I don't understand how these people, and trust me, working in financing, I see people's finances.
Yeah.
And I don't get it.
Oh.
I really don't get it, where I see these people who are, she makes, say, $58,000 a year. He makes like $61,000 a year. Oh, but they got their house is valued at $980,000 and their mortgage payments $3,800 a month over the, amortized over the next 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have room for $1,000 car payment, and a $400 boat payment, and $600 a month ATV payment. And I'm looking at them like, how do you afford that?
Yeah. Doesn't make sense.
I think it's because Canada has, prior to Dear Leader coming in, since Dear Leader has come in, Canada has the world's worst debt service ratio per person per capita in the world.
Wow.
Where everybody is not maxed out, they are over maxed out. Canada's not a good place right now. Not a good place. And Dear Leader And here's one for you. They took our guns. Okay. Dear Leader just said that he is going to go harder on getting guns off the street. Even though the guns that they are confiscating are owned by legal gun owners,
What?
and gun violence in Toronto alone is up 45%.
Wow.
That's
And
crazy.
it's all handguns being smuggled across Lake Ontario from Detroit.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It doesn't make any sense to take guns away from, you know,
Yeah. And he's
legal
proud of
owners.
this. He's
Yeah.
proud of this. Right?
That's insane.
Yep. Good old dear leader. You know?
No, it
Like
makes
I
the
love our country, man. I'm a Canadian through and through. I'm a Canadian patriot. But it's getting to the point where there's way too much dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Way too much dumb happening.
Yeah. Agreed.
And you know, when the mathematics isn't adding up, you know, you have to make a decision. Like, I'm literally, if Dear Leader somehow gets reelected in 2025, if he lasts that long, I mean, he already has people in his own political party who are trying to oust him right now.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
But if somehow Dominion Lending allows him to get reelected, if we use those idiot machines for the election federally next year or sooner, and he gets reelected, my house is going up for sale. I'm getting the hell out of here. I don't care where I go in the world. I can do this show from anywhere in the world. Okay. And that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to be doing that.
Sounds like me, doesn't it?
And I've actually thought of, you know, not to sound radical or anything, but I've literally even thought of claiming asylum down in the U.S. because it is that bad here right now.
Well, it's pretty bad here as well.
Yeah, it's not great here.
It's a different kind of bad, but at least down there, I could buy a house and be mortgage free within a few years, depending on where you move.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Depending on where you live.
Yeah.
I don't like big city living. I don't need a $1 million house. I don't need a $400,000 house. I don't need a $300,000 house. All I need is a house where there's good internet and I have a room for my studio. That's all I need. If it has a shower, a working sink, working toilet, okay, and isn't in a too horrid of an area, I would go to one of those small towns like, well, I'm definitely not going to Washington State, but I'll use it as an example. Okay. I think the closest west I would go would be Nevada. Probably somewhere Midwest, right? But I think if I were to go, and I think Montana is accepting Canadians right now, I would go to a small mountain town, find a small town that has, you know, a couple thousand people like where I'm living now, and just bury myself there. Or the other option that I've thought about is heading down to Central America, finding a house in the mountains. Yes, I would, you know, I'm, pardon my language, I'd be fucking myself in one way or another, because if you move near the water, you're paying more, but there's great white sharks right there, and makos and tigers and bull sharks. Okay. And I'm a meal. That ain't going to work. Or you move up into the mountains where you have pythons and like 84 feet long pythons and 72 foot boa constrictors. Okay, and spiders that will literally, they're like this big and they will eat you.
Okay.
But I'm willing to take that chance to get away from dear leader.
Yeah.
That's for
Jesus.
sure. Totally willing to take that chance to get away from dear leader.
That's going to be a hard no for me.
Well,
I would
maybe
sooner
Pahrump.
live amongst the snakes.
Maybe
than live-
Pahrump. I'm trying to say maybe Pahrump, Nevada,
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
home of
Well-
Art Bell.
I know. I once drove through the Kingdom of Nye.
Oh, did you?
I did, and I got all excited.
Out.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But
a year from now, we're all going to be living in these weird places.
I don't care who the politicians are, right? I don't care who you love or hate.
Yeah.
Going into your federal election or our federal election next year. But
Mhm.
put your hatred aside for whoever you are voting for one way or another and just vote to stop the dumb.
Yeah.
That's all I-
Agreed.
This world is just stop the dumb. It's
It's
not
out of
funny.
hand.
It's no longer funny.
No.
No.
Right.
It never
no-
was, but now it's out of control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Way too much
It's
dumb
bad.
out there.
Way too much.
And I'm saying this, so people, I don't usually talk about my political affiliation, but I'm fired up.
No.
I am a hybrid between I'm a very liberal person. Okay. Be who you want to be. Don't care. Don't
Mhm.
care. Okay. Don't care what religion you are.
Right.
Don't care what color you are. Just the
Mhm.
only thing I ask is be a good human being to me and my family. Okay.
Absolutely.
And we're going to go old school a little bit that if you bully my kid, somebody's got to get hurt. Okay. Because I don't do my son, for instance, yesterday got in trouble for hitting a kid who punched him. Right. My son comes home. He thinks he's going to get in hell from me. And I looked at him and I gave him a high five. Said, good job. Like we talked about it. It wasn't that instantaneous.
Yeah.
We had a little man-to-man talk about it. But in the end, I told him point blank. I said, you are not in trouble. He goes, Dad, I did what you told me to do, because he's been picked on before. He's been bullied before. So
That's sad.
I said to him point blank, I said, you did nothing wrong. You stood up for yourself. Okay. So I guess this kid kicked one boy and then kicked and punched my boy. My boy punched him back and then shoved him against the wall. Kid hit his shoulder and started crying. I'm failing to see the problem here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But on the flip side, financially, I'm a very conservative guy. Right. And I don't like dumb.
Yeah.
Okay. So people will say, well, what's dumb? Well, paper straws in plastic wrappers is dumb.
Yeah.
Going to the grocery store where I can't get a plastic bag to carry my groceries out, where 90% of the stuff I buy is in a plastic container, whether it's my orange juice, my vegetables. If I buy a loaf of bread, guess what? It's in a plastic bag. Right?
Yep.
My meat wrapped in. Not only plastic, but styrofoam.
Mm-hmm.
My nemesis in life. If you want to know one thing I hate in life, it's styrofoam.
Me too.
I hate it.
Oh, styrofoam is a horrid, horrid invention. Okay. So everything is plastic. Don't give me dumb that you are blaming climate change on plastic forks and knives and plastic straws. Okay.
I take the smallest thing of the whole world of plastic and blame it on that.
Yeah.
The straw.
So
not the cup.
I'm tired of dumb. I'm tired of like, give you an example at school where my son defends himself And yet my son gets in trouble. He didn't get suspended or anything.
Mhm.
Okay. Because I know exactly how I would have reacted. If I would have got the call from the teacher, my first question would have been, okay, so we're pressing charges against this boy for hitting my son, correct? Because in Canada, the law is in Canada, you can only defend yourself to the action that is ahead of you. So for instance, if I get punched, I can punch you back. But if you show a knife to me, I can show a knife to you. I cannot go gun to fists or gun to knife.
Wow.
Can't do that. It's got to be equal or lesser value. You know, how they figured that crap out, I don't know.
Interesting.
But if I would have been in that phone call instead of my other half, it would have been much different. We wouldn't be talking about, oh, your boy hit somebody today and made him cry. Yeah. What's the problem here?
Yeah.
Tell me what the fucking problem is. This kid hit my son. He kicked my son. And I forewarned you teachers years ago when this happened, I was teaching my boy how to fight.
Wow.
To defend himself. And I said, so
sad.
he does.
He's been dealing with this for years.
Yeah.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. So
no
he
kid should have
defends
to deal with that.
He defends himself. And then he was feeling good about himself. And one of the kids who's been bullying him since grade 1 broke his best friend, my son's best friend's toy, and then started going after my boy. My boy cocked him in the head too. Right? And I'm
He's had
like,
enough.
so I looked at him. I stood up. I looked at him and I clapped. Good job. Stand up to these bullies.
Yeah.
Right? I know that, like, when my son was bullied in grade 3,
That's ridiculous.
I walked right in because my son told me, he goes, Dad, I said, what are you doing at recess and lunch now? He goes, I just sit against a wall and I sit alone. Because he was scared.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
So
heartbreaking.
I went up to the teacher and I said, what's with this bullying going on? Oh, well, we're trying to deal with it. And Colby's got to learn that not every kid wants to play with him. And I said, okay, so that gives the other boys a right to hit my son? I said, I tell you what's good. I said, this is the way it's going to play out. I said, I'm going to teach my son how to fight,
Mm-hmm.
to defend himself. And I said, when he hits another one of those children, if you try to suspend or punish my boy for defending himself, I will see your fucking ass in court, because I will sue you and the school board for everything that you have. I said, this is I said, and trust me, please do not take this as a threat. Take it as a promise that this is going to happen. You don't have a choice here. If my son doesn't have a choice about being bullied and standing up for himself, you don't have a choice for the consequences. Well, we don't allow kids to hit each other. Okay, I realize that.
Jeez.
Okay. But sometimes certain kids out there need a kick in the head. Well, that's a little bit weird, but a kick in the ass. Okay.
At least the bullies.
Yep.
Right. So, yeah, I did what any good father would do.
Yeah.
I looked at my son and I said, you're not in trouble. Good job. Way to go.
There you go.
Yep.
That's exactly what I did. And I'm happy about it. Because my son is so if you knew my boy and saw how passive he is, you would understand that he doesn't like hurting the feelings of anybody.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sadly, those are the kids that usually get bullied.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, plus he has his one friend that my partner just hates. And and he and this kid is about 7 inches shorter than my son. They're the same age, about 7 inches shorter, and he's just a mean little bastard, right?
Okay.
A mean little bastard, and he protects my son. So there's been a couple of times this year where kids have been pushing around Colby, and he is so, because he's pretty passive, and his friend Marlin will run over there. Don't you touch Colby? Whap, 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 whap. And I'm looking at it, and I know the boy's parents very well, and they're the first ones to say, "Oh, so he was sticking up for his friend? Okay, what's the issue?
Yeah.
Like, what's the issue?
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. I had to do it when I was in school.
We all had to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I got bullied until I kicked the bully's butt. And then that all stopped.
Yeah.
Just get to that breaking point.
You know what? For all the pacifists out there, I will say this. And you're going to hate me for saying this, don't care, because like I told you guys a few weeks ago, I have 0 fucks to give anymore. Okay? But I will say this to the pacifists out there. I am not condoning violence. I don't like violence. Yes, when I played hockey, I was a fighter on the ice. But if I see a street fight over here, I'm running this way because I don't like street fights. But the only way a bully learns is by taking that hit himself or herself. That's the only way. Okay, I'm not talking you go on X or one of these other channels and you see, oh, you smiled at my boyfriend. Now I got to rip your hair out and beat the tar out of you and kick you in the head and all that. I'm not saying that kind of crap. That's garbage. But when you see somebody who is being picked on and being bullied, okay, that's a whole different ball game than being a shithead.
Right.
Yep. Agreed.
And these bullies, you talk to anybody who was a bully, okay, they needed their ass kicked.
Yeah, they deserve it.
Right?
Yep.
My son got bullied. My oldest son got bullied when he was in junior high, about 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And he came home one day. He was a very sick child, too. I just had surgery and no hair. And they were just, making fun of him because he said, you look like you're dying or something. And they straight up just, a girl even did it, kicked him right in the boy part, and he was in so much pain, came home, told me, I dressed up like a little teenage kid and I went down to the school and I found the kid myself. And I just let the kid know, like, straight up, you mess with my son, you're going to be messing with me. And not a teacher or anybody there knew it was me. But I let that kid know straight up, like, that ain't going to happen again because you'll be dealing with me. I don't care if I was an adult at the time. I wasn't going to deal with it.
Oh, I fully agree with you. I fully agree with everything you're saying. And like I said, I hate street fighting. Street fighting from when we were kids is nothing like it is today. Okay, nobody jumped in. Nobody was kicking people in the head. I don't know where that came from. I blame soccer for that. I really do. Okay, and I'm not even joking on that one. Okay, but back in the day when you got in a fight, it was 1-on-1, maybe the odd time 2-on-1. Okay, but there was no, like, when a guy was down, there was no jumping and give him ground and pound.
No.
There was no kicking to the head. Nothing like that. And it's sad that it's got that way, but it's it's real simple. If somebody bullies my son and somebody, and and that boy gets a little bit of retribution, I remember playing in this hockey game. It happened twice when I played hockey. Once I was playing a recreation game for my buddy's work team. And another time it happened at a hockey tournament that we were playing in Las Vegas. And you get these guys, they were going out there wearing all the full gear. They had the full face mask on. And both times they took a shot at the goalie. And they took shots at other people. Like, we're talking like a hockey stick right to the back of the legs. If you know hockey gear, there's two places that you don't have protection. Number one is your back, and number two is your legs. So this one guy, we literally, it was so hilarious. This is I'm going to tell you a real Canadian story here for a second. So our hockey team's going down to Las Vegas. And we got a roster of 15 and one goalie. And like 10 days, 8 days, 7 days before we leave to go, almost half of our team says, I can't go. So we go down there with 8 players and a goalie. So if you know hockey, there's 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and 1 goalie. There's 6 of those players are on the ice at all times. And we had 8 players and 1 goalie, 9 people. So we have 4 spares. So anyways, we're playing this team from Lansing, Michigan. And they got this short man syndromes guy on their team. And all game he's been chirpy and everything. And this was probably the second period. We're beating them 4-2 at this point. We're beating them. And it's like halfway through the early into the third period. And what does he do? He smacks our goalie right behind the legs. I'm playing defense. So I skate up to him and I grab him by the collar. And I said, I have to kick your ass now. I said, I don't care, in more colorful language, said, I don't care if I get suspended for the rest of the tournament. I have to kick your ass now. I said, you've been a shithead on the ice the entire game. And buddy, I'm going to rip your cage off right now. And I'm going to fuck you up. And he goes ghost way. Captain from the other team jumps onto the ice and skates up to us. We know you guys are from Canada. Okay. We don't want this kind of, we came down here for fun. We didn't come down here to brawl. We know you guys can brawl. We don't want, and I look at my bench. We've got 2 players on the bench. They've got 19 skaters. We've got 8 and a goalie. And I look at my bench. I look at theirs. I look at my bench. Look at theirs. I said, this guy doesn't play another shift. Otherwise, I'm coming into your bench. And I'll take you all on. Don't care. Not a problem. Skates up. And I'm just like, I'm shitting my pants at this point, right? Because that's like 2 to 3 to 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God.
And knowing them being American, somebody's got a Glock tucked into their jockstrap, right? This is going through my 20-year-old mind at this time, 21-year-old mind. Oh, yeah. Yep. Emperor Penguin, John Hudson. The fighting that people, when you see on TV, people kicking people in the head now. That's what soccer is being blamed for. That's why soccer is a sport. Right? Oh, yeah.
was crazy.
What an ass. Let me tell you.
I mean, listen, I gotta tell you, even as an adult, like I know I did that as an adult with my son, but even now, even at my age, if somebody was messing with my kid, I'm gonna clock them.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm coming for you. Like I will shank a bitch. I mean, I am
Well,
coming
shake and
for
bake
you.
Jackie there.
Listen, I look really good in orange and stripes, I have to say. So I got no fear.
Too bad.
I am
Hopefully you
golden.
never have to go there.
Hopefully I don't, but I'm telling you, you
Mhm.
come for my kid.
I
I'm
hear you.
coming for you.
I hear
I'm
you.
hardcore mama. I'm telling you, I am hardcore when it comes to my kids.
Me too.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
On that note, some of us have to work in the morning because some of us work 6 days a week. Unlike Major Lee there, who's going fashion shopping tomorrow.
Fashion shopping. I gotta help mom out tomorrow. So
Yeah. Guaranteed tomorrow you walk out of a store with at least 2 scarves.
scarves. Well, it's winter is
You look
coming.
like a scarf guy.
Winter is coming.
Winter is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
Yep.
might hit 80 this week.
Oh. Let's see.
And that's going down.
Today's warm was, I think, 39 degrees here.
Oh, Lord. Is that degrees or Celsius?
So that's Fahrenheit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was
Holy
yeah.
cow.
So it was about 5-6 degrees Celsius here.
Wow.
That's crazy.
When I got
It's
up this morning to go to
67
work,
right now here.
well, let's see what it is here right now.
It's
Weather.
67.
40.
Tomorrow is 90 degrees here. 90.
Oh, it's warm right now. It's 3 degrees Celsius.
Oh my
That's
God.
about 36 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
And what's tomorrow? Tomorrow we'll have a high of 10 degrees Celsius.
Hmm.
So it'll be about, what's that? About 44 degrees. 42,
Oh my
43.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had a horrible heat wave through this October. It is hot here.
Well,
I've been cranking my AC all night.
yeah, we've been cranking our heater all night. That's why I had to open
Oof.
up the window. So here's Halloween night
Hmm.
in beautiful British Columbia. Going to be down to minus 4 degrees Celsius
Oh my
ch-
God.
with a chance of snow.
Wow.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Halloween here, 72 degrees, low, possibly down to 44. It does get chilly in the night here, but nowhere near as chilly at your house.
You know what bugs me is you watch all these Hollywood shows when they go to trick or treating. Why do they always have? And I don't know if this is a thing in the U.S. because it's not here in Canada. I hope it never is in Canada. But every television show, they have kids trick or treating in the daylight. What's with that?
Yeah, I mean,
In the dark.
I think it starts about like 4:00.
Yeah, we do get
Sometimes.
some kids that like the real tiny ones, like the real young ones. I think they like to get them out just before dark, but I've never seen anybody like maybe before 4. I don't think I've ever seen anybody like before 4 o'clock. But here, that crap goes on to like 10 p.m. and I'm like, I'm over it. I'm going to bed.
Yep. Oh,
People are
and
still ringing my doorbell.
oh, and considering that our chat room is a Daveocracy, it's not a democracy, it's a Daveocracy. Just a reminder, because we got a lot of new listeners this year in our chat room.
Oh,
If this is a word of warning for me, if you turn away teenagers in costumes, say 16, 17, 18-year-olds, okay, maybe even 19-year-olds, who are out trick-or-treating, instead of breaking and entering, stealing
Thank you.
cars, vandalism, okay, we don't want you here.
Agreed. I'm
We
gonna
don't
yell
want
that.
you here.
Agreed. My son
All
is
right.
16 and he ran around the yard all day in his Puffy Patrick costume. And I love it. And I'm taking that boy out trick-or-treating in it.
And
There you
here's
go.
the other thing too, and I learned this from my friend Mark and Tara, little Marky Spender. Their daughter is high functioning autistic. Okay. A lot of these older kids that go out trick-or-treating, it's because they're still thinking at a younger age.
Yeah,
They don't
do.
realize that their bodies are mid to late teens, and they're still thinking like a 10 on that aspect,
they do.
still thinking like a 10, 11, 12-year-old.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So don't give them hell for trick-or-treating. How about you compliment them on their costume and just give them a
Agreed.
it's a piece of candy.
Thank you. I love that you said that. I love that.
Apparently, Area 51 is wanting to have a T-shirt competition with me. I don't know what that entails, but
Well, obviously it's wearing extra small. All right.
Area 51, you got to wear XX small to win.
That shirt right there would look like a half top on me.
it is a large, Dave. It is a large.
Oh, you lie.
I swear to God.
Children's
I swear
large.
to God.
That's children's large. You went into the kids section and bought the children's large. The extra small wasn't tight enough for you and your sexy arms.
It's not tight. It's good. It fits perfectly.
Uh-huh.
It would have been tight on me, Dave.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And if you knew Jackie, she's tiny. But you know, these arms when he wears a shirt in the morning, he looks like the Ultimate Warrior back when he had his around his biceps.
That's funny.
Truthful.
I'm here to pump you up.
No, I'm not here to pump you up.
Anyways, big thank you tonight to Deboruni ×2. And who else? Or 3, pardon me. Necessary Dialogue. T-Bone, my man. Mel WD40 with his special lube chat. Deanna Ann. Richard Minnick. Thank you for the love. Don't forget, Robbie G will be here tomorrow and Sunday night. He's got some great stuff planned for you guys this weekend. He'll also be hosting for me on Halloween night while I will be giving my final ghost tour of the year and likely my final ghost tour ever.
Wow.
Ever. Yeah. This is what happens when you take advantage of people. They all of a sudden don't want to do things. And when you take their idea, claim it as your own, and then try to change the rules that the creator set up, things usually don't go well. And it usually means that when you do this to the person who is your biggest annual donor,
wow,
and you piss them off, you lose that money. You do. So, yeah.
So thank you for joining us tonight on Trash Talk.
Once again, I'm just going to state it to people that if you see me being a little bit more forward and a little bit more attitude, it's because I literally have 0 fucks to give anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at. I never thought I would be like this because I'm the dude who tries to care for everybody. You know, like my new boss at work, not to brag, my new boss at work will tell you point blank, he's never met a guy who comes into work every day trying to build a positive atmosphere like me. And I'm like, it's what it's all about, man. We're not healing people. We're not sending people into space. We're not winning Nobel Prizes here. Right? So why not be happy about it? We're not in war yet.
Yeah.
Thanks, Israel and
key
Iran.
word.
Happy about that.
Mm-mm.
Right? Appreciate you
True.
guys.
Love you.
Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Take care. Everybody, I will see you on Monday night. Lon Strickler will be here with Strange Days. Talk to you all soon. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.